Okay. Okay. It's just it's
Okay.
funny because every time I don't record, something gets said or done that somebody, wow, are you recording this? And I want to record it for my page, and I've got a YouTube page coming and the sourcelessness.com and stuff. And it's just I let it roll because every now and again something really nice gets said or shared,
Oh,
and
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
So it's
uh,
fun that way. Yeah.
so
And
what is Andrew? I just saw something about Andrew having
yeah,
a video, or what does
yeah,
he
he's
do?
actually my tech guy. It's actually a beautiful thing because he's kind of learning how to do this stuff in front of me, and then using what he's learned to help me come along on my own stuff. And so,
Yeah, it's great, both of you.
right, yeah. So it's we're kind of helping each other, but without Andrew, I couldn't do it. So I'm so grateful for him, and we set up a YouTube page yesterday, and
Yeah, that's what I
told me,
see. Yeah, that sounds fun.
yeah, I called it Bedside Manor with Howard. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So I'm just having my second cup of coffee now.
oh, going with coffee. I love it. I used to be a big,
Yeah. So, oh yeah. How are you doing? How are you feeling? And
well, I'm doing really well. It's beautiful to see you, and I've been going through a lot of things, in my own personal little life here. But everything is surprisingly the same and beautiful. Uh, Meeting a lot of new people and seeing a lot of new stuff.
yeah,
You know, hooking back up with good friends. A lot of different things have happened this week. It's beautiful.
good. You have a bed now? You have a good bed?
No, well, I do have a good bed. I'm not, in the broad scheme of things, it's good. But as far as yeah, I still don't have the one I wanted or ordered. But
No.
I'm
Oh
not
my
gonna,
God.
it's like first world problems. I'm in a bed. I'm happy about that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What a story. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh
So
gosh.
we had a big birthday week this last week. Little Gabriel turned 2 years old, and his sister turned 3 5 days later. So we had a little party at a park out here, and it was just wonderful. I just can't believe what a change it makes in my life. So it's been
Isn't
fun.
it beautiful though? I mean, that's amazing. A lot of people would not say that. You know, Watching a 2-year-old grandchild have their birthday, would be all that important. But I think
Well, they don't know Gabriel. That's why.
say what.
They don't know Gabriel. He is just a wonderful. Well, he reminds me so much of my son. Yeah. So I was almost 30 when my son was born, my first child. And eventually, when he was 5 years old, we went to India together. And he was 5 years old, and we stayed there, different places in India, until he was 15. So he was my little traveling companion from the time he was little. So we shared a lot of that together. And then, of course, my daughter was born in India when he was like 8 years old. So we had a couple of years there before we got back to the States. Yeah. So I guess so. It's just reminds me of being with my son Prem. He was named also by Osho. His name was Prem Deep, which was means the light of love.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
yeah, but we just Siva and Siva. It's really Seva. She was Deva Seva, and I just changed it to Siva. And she was, it was wonderful to have her in India, because then I wasn't working. I just had the 2 kids, and it was so cheap to live there. And we lived on the beach. We had a little hut on the beach, right on the beach, and we were there all day. I mean, it was a wonderful, wonderful time when they were young. Yeah. So.
Can you give me one more second? Because I could barely hear you. I'm going to get back on my headset.
Sure.
One second.
Oh, we go.
Turn it back on again. Okay. Wow.
Okay, you need to see if you can hear me.
Yeah, I'm having some. Yeah, this thing's giving me trouble.
Uh-oh.
I mean, it's having trouble connecting. It's never done that before. Of course, it would have to do it now. My apologies. But oh well. Let me shut that off. Wow, interesting. So yeah, let me see if I can turn this. Yeah, okay. Well, difficulties as always, but no big deal. I would love to be on a hut on a beach right now. You know, like
Yes,
be a
I
hut on
know.
the beach in India.
Oh
With my
my God.
children.
Living on the beach in a little hut made out of palm leaves, right? It was wonderful. It was a wonderful time to be there because well, they called everybody hippies because it was when I went there, it was 1974. And there were a lot of people from Europe, especially from England, and even America. After a while, there weren't many people there from the States. But when we first went there, it was like Haight Ashbury on the beach, you know. We'd all, sunset time, we'd all get on the beach, have a little smoke of the hashish they had. And yeah, it was a ritual. That was our daily ritual, have a little smoke at sunset, watch the sun go down in the ocean. And yeah, so I was talking to my son last night, and we both miss those days, because what we were saying was that we had community there. Everybody that was there, they're mostly young people, and we weren't working. We were pretty much on a spiritual path, and it was, everybody was happy. I mean, we were just very free, very free. And so here, I mean, I have a lot that I'm thankful for here, because I have a lot of family. But you know, you don't know your neighbors, you don't know people. You're there all day. You'd go and eat someplace, and you could sit and meet people all the time. And yeah, it was just a very idyllic way. So my son, we didn't come back till he was 15 years old. And then he went to high school. It was a
How
horrible,
did that go?
horrible thing.
How did that go for you? That's hilarious.
He'd never been to school, but he knew
Wow.
how to read, because I'm a teacher, and so he knew how to read. So, but that was a hard time, to be confined then to a classroom for him. And yeah, but he did well. And both of them went to college eventually. And yeah, so, but up until a couple of years ago, I was going to India every year for 10 years before that. And my son sometimes would go and we'd meet there. But so now it's a different life. So now I have the grandchildren, but and doesn't sound like I'm going to be able to go back to India anytime soon, but I really feel like it's my home. I really, when I get there, it's like, oh, I'm home, so yeah.
Well, so you were able to teach your children college level. I mean, you got them to high school, at least by the time they're 15, they're obviously in high school. So you were able to teach your children and keep them up to like American school equivalency.
Well, they had an advantage actually, because they met people from all over the world, and
Right.
they were exposed to different languages and just different cultures. But it was difficult to come back and be in the States and be in the school. And yeah, it was very hard. I had taught him to read, and but math, he was taking remedial math and algebra at the same time. But of course, the foundation there in India, it's a very spiritual place. I mean, it's all over. You have pictures of Shiva and Krishna, and you go into this little shack that's a little chai shack for tea and chai, and it'll be named the Great Maharaj.
What does that mean? What does that mean, Shiva and Krishna? What is
A
that?
little Shiva. Well, the Shiva is one of the the gods. There's three main gods, although in Hinduism there's only one god, and people don't know that because there's thousands of representations of the gods, thousands. And that they're all, if you talk to a Hindu, a Brahmin, he'll say, no, there's only one God. These are just different aspects of God.
And
So,
okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so Shiva, okay, there's Brahma, who's the creator, Shiva, who's called the destroyer, but what it means is that he destroys our Maya, our illusion that we have to get through, that we're not the body and the mind. That's who he is. He's the man that lives in the Himalayas. The funny thing is, when everybody smoked chillums, you know what a chillum is?
Yeah.
It's a cone-shaped clay.
Oh,
and then they put the charis and the tobacco in there and smoke the chillums like a joint, but it's in a chillum, right?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the strange thing, living in a hut on the beach, and all you could hear all the time, every time they lit a chillum, was Boom Shankar, So that was smoking to Shiva. So
Right.
it was really true, smoking to the destroyer of the Maya, destroyer of the illusion that we are, and we were there able to be free and become these free beings because we had the help of the charis and just and it was always a prayer. So it combined the alteration of when you smoke, and it was a prayer. And like I say, all the little shops were named after the gods, and there were pictures of the gods. And a lot of the people, the Indian people, many of them don't read. And so they have a lot of superstitions surrounding their religion. And we probably knew more about Hinduism than many of the people there, and yeah, anyway, so that was the basis of of being there, people were interested in learning. And it wasn't all about, it's not all about Hinduism, it's about how to live in the moment. That was basically what the teachings were. If you went to a satsang with any of the masters or anything. So, yeah. So I don't know when I'm going to get back there, because they're still having a terrible time with COVID. And I hope to go back there before I'm too old to to want to endure it, because it's not easy, especially when we were there at first. There was no ATMs, there was no cell phones, there were no telephones, period. I mean, I was really cut off from the rest of the world. I was there, and there was no electricity in places where we lived. And so, I mean, it was really very, very primitive. And I guess that was the good part about it, because you just got down to the bare essentials there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So what do they mean by God? What is the one God?
What is the main god?
The one God of
Shiva, or the one god that they believe. Okay, so they have amazing myths, so many myths, like I say, and we know they're myths, but a lot of the Indians take everything for face value. I even heard, this is really what I mean. So one of the gods is Shiva, and Parvati is his wife. And there's a whole story about her son. And Shiva was away, and she had this son. And she asked her son to guard everything while she took a bath at the pool, at the lake. And Shiva came home, and there was this person, and he didn't let Shiva go in to see her bathing. And so Shiva cut off his head, and Parvati comes out, and it's her son, and his head is chopped off. So he went out and he chopped the head off. The first thing he saw, which was an elephant. So you've seen pictures of Ganesha. It's the little god with the elephant head. And so, I mean, obviously that's a myth, right? And I just heard that Modi, who's the Prime Minister of India, right, Modi, and he was telling people that, see, India had transplants many years ago. We even were able to put an elephant head on a person. Now he's talking to his people, and many of them believe that. You know, they don't take it as mythology.
Yeah. Well, I saw that with I Am That, I think, when he basically says, he lays it out very well.
Who is this?
Your guy, Maharashi or whatever.
Oh yeah, okay, Ramana.
I Am That.
Yeah.
Oh, I Am That. Is that another guy? Who wrote I Am That?
Ramana Maharshi.
Yeah, so
there's other ones too.
Yeah,
yes.
when I was reading that, what I got from him was, I mean, there is, all of that is a story. He basically says it up front. These are all stories. That these are metaphors and things of this nature. It's not even a god. It's not, it's not a deity of any kind. And I immediately resonated with that. All of these, he says, we talk in terms of me being able to tell you something in order to get you to understand that this is not a dimension. It's only appearing as one, but yet paradoxically, I'm not doing anything, and I'm not saying anything. You're not hearing it, and it's impossible to even do what we are implying. Nobody's doing anything. So,
right.
And that in effect is what is kind of is God. But he says it's not God. It's not a deity. You're not
right.
separate from it, and it's not doing anything. It's an amazing little bit. And I've listened to a lot of his stuff, and I agree in a lot of what he said. A lot. He says, from this point forward, I'm going to be saying a lot of stuff about mythology. There's going to be a lot of metaphor. There's going to be a lot of talking about these things as if I am doing something and telling stories. But in effect, they are only stories. And if you understand this, then you can close this book. Yeah, you don't need what I'm about to say. The rest of this is just for, there's what I like to call birds chirping in trees. So, it is just this appearance of individuals communicating information about something that, appears to be happening, not happening. And he talks about it as, I can't even, I believe, and I'm paraphrasing very loosely here, but, he says, I can't even tell you anything of my own volition because there's no one here. There's not an individual that has something to say that could be correct or not correct. And there's what is beyond the explanation of an individual in separation. And what we're trying to say is that there is no separation as separate individuals, appearing,
Right.
And it's impossible to do, and he was very eloquent about it in the book, and I appreciated it very much. I wish I could be as eloquent, if I had my preferences, I would have a lot of this stuff down, but really, truly, it is not dimensional, and it's not separate. There's no deity, but that in itself is the deity. If you want to call it that, that's what it is. But it's there's a deity would imply that there is separation, and that
Right.
there's something doing and something
Right.
being done. Whereas what is truly is just this appearance of a happening, both doing and not doing, happening and not happening. So it's
I know.
really amazing in that respect. And I think that's what he was saying. I mean, that's the way I read it. And
Yeah.
it was beautiful. I thought it was amazing.
Well, Shiva, I want to turn this around so you can see
Okay.
Shiva. There's Shiva.
Okay.
So he has the moon in his hair.
And was it the hash? Like, didn't the hash was like her teardrops or something? And that's what it's like, the gift of Shiva. The teardrops are the hash that help you, or whatever you were talking about, smoking the hashish earlier. And
That what?
you were talking about smoking hashish earlier, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
a lot of people call that Shiva. And from what I understand, it was like the tears from her eyes that gave the gift of Shiva to individuals, to people, right? Isn't that what Shiva is? Everybody calls, I mean, Shiva the god as
Shiva, yeah, what they say actually is Shiva, who has the moon in his hair, that all is Shiva. That's part of it. Everything is Shiva. And then there's Shiva, Parvati. What I like about the Hindu religion is that there's the male, female. And so they say Shiva is the consciousness, and Parvati is the manifestation of consciousness. And they're both one. So I like that,
So neither started first. It's not that there's a physical universe that culminated consciousness, and it's not that consciousness culminates what appears to be the physical. They're both one and the same.
They're both one and the same. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So it's the yin yang, and yeah. So So if and Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu. Vishnu is Brahma is the creator, Shiva is the destroyer, and then Vishnu is when you realize what we're saying. Vishnu is the restorer. Yeah. So yeah. But but they can say it's all Shiva or it's all Krishna. I mean, all these different gods are have amazing stories, and yeah. So yeah, and so it was such a relief. Like I said, I was brought up Catholic, very Catholic, and I finally, after when I got my divorce, and so I was already 30, in my 30s when I got a divorce, and I just stopped going to church then, because it was like, well, doesn't accept divorce, you know, it doesn't accept if I were to get married again or be with somebody again. And it's like, but I was very old, and they say that the oldest child is the one that stays with the parents' religions and things the longest, because I have 8 brothers and sisters, and most of them stopped going to church a long time before I did. And now I can be very angry at the Catholic Church, because as a young child in school, I cried every day in school. When I was 6 years old, I was terrified. I had crazy nuns, you know, and I can remember being 6 years old and thinking, these nuns don't know God, or they wouldn't be so mean. I mean, I knew that at 6 years old, you know, but I also was very spiritual. And so when I went to India, and I have to say, I was with Osho, who was Bhagwan then, and I cried. I think I told you I cried during the first meetings, because this first talks, because it was such a freeing of everything that I believed. And so he did talk a good talk. You know?
Yeah, I heard that. I heard that about Ocho. He had quite the way about him. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it was just a wonderful thing for me to go to India after my divorce. It's so freeing. And yeah, and because I had been so spiritual and so Catholic, so it was I had to replace it with truth, I guess, you know, with the real truth. Yeah.
So did
So
you
he
find that
helped
with
me.
Bhagwan?
But
Did you find truth with the Bhagwan?
well, yes, I mean, he helped me for sure. And I was at the ashram for 4 years. And at the last year was like, okay, I'm gonna leave now. Yeah, it was a, yeah.
Well, what made you leave?
Well, some really, like I said, there were some terrible things that happened. Well, there were some terrible things that were happening, and I just left. It was like, okay, well, that's enough time for there. Yeah.
So you outgrew the place. It was just time to.
Yeah, I mean, I was so released from all my Catholic beliefs, and then I had to rethink all of the things that I had believed with Bhagwan, because when I was disillusioned there at the end, you know, but still, he had freed me. And but then I think he wanted too much power, you know, too much power was really what happened. And he never should have left India, really.
Yeah, they never really, I never really figured out why that all, he left and then came back and whatever. But uh, I'm just glad that I know you because I've known some people in the past, that have had similar experiences where they had to leave that ashram and for
Yeah,
very specific reasons. And it's one of those things where you run into that conversation on occasion, with
yeah.
different people, and it's always nice to hear everyone's perspective. So,
Well, the strange thing is when I got to Pune after being in Goa, which is where we had our little hut on the beach, and I had gone into an altered state, like, and so I went there because I wanted to know what was going on with me, right? I didn't know when I got there that I was pregnant. So when I realized I was pregnant, and I told a couple people there, my friends, and they said, "Oh, you have to ask Bhagwan. You have to tell Bhagwan, right? Because he doesn't like people to have babies here. He'll tell you to have an abortion." This is what he did. He told people what to do. This is why a very questionable guru, you don't tell people what to do with their lives, right? You can teach them to follow their own. So I finally, so many people told me that, well, you have to ask him if you can have your baby, And I thought, well, I had been in this sacred space when she was conceived, and I was definitely going to have this baby. But I thought, okay, just to shut everybody up, I'm going to go to a darshan and ask. So I went there, and this couple went up before me and said that she was pregnant. And he's like, no, it's not time. You're young. It interferes with the work, is what he said. Interferes with his work.
wow.
And I thought, uh-oh, So I went up next and I said, I'm going to have a baby. And everybody in the place was shocked because he said, fine, when you're ready to be a mother, you can be a mother. And I said, well, I am a mother and I like being a mother and I'm going to have another baby. So I always thank him for that because he must have known. I mean, I think he was an enlightened being. I do. He must have known something because no other baby was allowed to be born or, at the place. And yeah. So I went to the doctor that was doing all these abortions. And the first time I went there, he said, okay, well, we can set up an abortion right like that. I didn't ask for an abortion. I just went there to be checked out for the doctor for being pregnant, and I said, no. And a couple other times I went there and he said the same thing. And it was like, I don't want an abortion. I'm having a baby, And it was really wonderful because I had people, my friends came and were with me when the baby was born, and I didn't have any drugs or anything. And yeah, it was very beautiful. So, and yeah, everybody, when I was pregnant, it was really great being pregnant because everybody, they were young people. I'm sure they had brothers and sisters at home, wherever, and there were no babies around. So everybody was touching my stomach and everybody was excited when the baby came. And yeah, so, but yeah.
So how long did you stay?
I was there 4 years at the ashram.
How long was the baby? How old was the baby when you left?
So the baby was born a year after I got there. So she was 3 years old when we left.
Really?
But we were between Goa. I wasn't there for 4 years straight. I would go to Goa for months at a time and then come back, you know.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
It was,
but it wasn't like he was he suggested abortion, but he didn't kick you out for having a child, right?
he what?
He didn't kick you out for having a child.
No. No, he said, yeah. So I'm always grateful for that. And I did some groups there, and they had some very acclaimed psychiatrists there that ran groups, and they were really good. It was a wonderful thing for me, actually. It helped me to get out of the whole Catholic thing and to be free. And so I appreciated my time there. Plus, everybody was happy, and I had many, many friends, and it was a beautiful time. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a
Yeah.
beautiful story. Yeah,
Yeah.
can't imagine. So, like on the in the ashram itself, was there running water or anything like that, or like when you were?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I didn't live in the ashram. I was actually lived next door. I was actually next door to Bhagwan's house, um, in the garage. So
Well,
I didn't
I
have.
heard that garage got fairly big after a while.
Well, there was a house, and many different people lived in this house. And then in the yard, there was a garage, and they had turned it into a school for the kids. There were only like 8 kids at the little school, and my son was one of them, because by then he was 7 years old. And so there were not many kids around at the ashram, as you can imagine. But they moved out of the school to another place, and so I talked to the owner of the house.
Excuse me, 1 second. My nurse is here.
Oh,
Sorry,
okay.
give me one second.
Yeah, take your
Sorry
time.
about that.
Okay.
Hey, how you doing? Oh, no way, you back? How you doing? Oh, I'm so glad to see you. I got my Zoom thing going on here. Just do your thing. Hey, do you want to go for the food with me today? Oh, okay, okay. Um, well, come back. But no big deal. We're worried about it later. Thank you, ma'am. How are you? I'm sorry about that.
So you don't need to be with your nurse, because I can come back later.
Oh no. She just she used to be here and she's come back. I have they just keep changing the schedule of the nurses around. And for a while I was like, I tried to make the Zoom meeting match, but the thing is that you never know when somebody's going to show up or when they won't. And
Yeah.
you never know. They keep changing the nurses on me, and it's just I'm just letting it go the way it goes. And
Okay. Well,
yeah,
I'm glad you have somebody check in with you. How often?
well, it was like 2.5 weeks there where they didn't send anybody, and they were saying that they were so overbooked and everything. Then they had somebody come out a few times last week, and then they these a lot of times they switch these girls around for so many different reasons. And the thing is that she got switched to another patient, and then they said that this young lady was going to come this Monday at 11:30. And so, but I had the reoccurring meeting at 11 every Monday, and that's more important to me now, that because they say that somebody will come out, and a lot of times they won't come out. And so instead of changing the meeting, I just allow it to go as it goes. And it's just the way it is. I have an occasional nurse that comes in and checks on me, and I'm grateful for that. You know
Well,
what I mean?
yeah.
There's absolutely there's nothing to hide here about that. It's just the situation I'm in. So, I'm grateful to have the help. when it does come.
Well, yeah. So how do you eat, Howard? Do you have people come in?
Well,
Do
you
you-
know what? I'm a very lucky disabled individual in that, you know, and for a long time there was a lot of problems, you know, and it was a struggle. It was very hard. But right now, I'm doing okay, and I've got enough money to where I can order DoorDash. And usually, when the nurses do come in, like when I do have a regular nurse with a car, like she'll be able to go to the store for me, and or the grocery store, to get my little things, whatever I need. When they can go to the grocery store, that's way better or way cheaper than DoorDash, for example. But I'm not going to complain. I'm spending a little more money on food because they deliver it to me, but that's better than not being able to get any food. So,
Well, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm trying to look on the bright side of things. I'm actually not doing bad. I mean, as far as it's also being able to communicate with people from all over the world, and you're from a neck of the woods that I used to, frequent, and that's beautiful. And I love being able to talk to so many people and deal with and just as far as being incapacitated. And again, this morning I tried to do, every now and again I'll feel better, and I'll stand up and I'll take care. I'll go and take care of something. I'll go, well, I feel pretty good, I mean, I could, I could do something here, and I'll start moving, and I get immediately, you know, reminded of the severity of the situation, and I had to come back to bed and like immediately. And
Yeah.
it's so weird because sometimes if I don't move and if I have my mind on other things, I can feel amazing. Like right now, as long as I'm laying on my left side, and I've been looking at this wall for I don't know how many years, but it is if as long as I'm laying on my left side, I'm okay as long as I don't have to move too much. But if I am moving, I can't move long, and I literally collapse. There's no way I can go. At 20 feet, it's starting to really. It's a problem. I mean, I can't go 40 feet. So to be able
But you
to,
can get up and stand once in a while.
yeah, so to be in a bed and to have a roof and to have the ability to call somebody up and get me food and bring it to my door is and then and as I said, having the technology available to talk to people around the world, and I'm not going to complain. I mean, there have been people in my situation throughout, the story of time and space that have just have it. If I was born 50 years earlier, my life would be way different. You know what I mean? I try to think of it in those terms, or the terms of say, like a Stephen Hawking, even to think of a Stephen Hawking. Of course, I'm no Stephen
Wow.
Hawking, but I
Yeah.
can imagine that kind of disability within the 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 vessel he was in, the body he was trapped in that he can't, if he wasn't born when he was and had the ability and the capability he did,
Right.
we would never have hooked him up to any kind of communication beacon. That he would never be able to communicate any of his theories or ideas.
Right.
And I just think about all the people throughout history of the story of time and space that did not have that, and that were in fact as brilliant as a Stephen Hawking, but had no way to convey information. And even within that auspices of that illusion of time and space and separation, just to look at it in that way, I am here to speak with you, and I have somebody helping me, and I have shelter and food, and there's absolutely, I have no complaint as long as I don't have to move. If as long as I don't have to move too much,
And you don't have to.
the
That's
honest
great. Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
honest truth. I mean, it's such a weird thing to think about. That people my age are still surfing and climbing. I mean, there's Magdalena on Facebook. I mean, she's she's way my senior, and she's still climbing mountains and doing rafting and all these other kind of things. And I know surfers that are 20, 30 years older than me, still surfing. And people ask me, if I miss that and everything. And yes, of course I do. I would love to do those kind of things, but but as far as complaining, absolutely not, because I did get to do those things, and they
Yeah.
were. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
won't do
quite
that.
amazing.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know. I was thinking that today. I thought, well, I can just push a button and then I can talk to Howard, who's 3,000 miles away. And it's quite amazing. And of course, when I was living in India, um, we had, like I said, we didn't have phone, we didn't have electricity, um, we didn't have ATMs. I mean, it was like you were just there. You were just there.
that's it. Yeah, I remember going to Baja California, the first like road trip we took as kids, and like where uh, we were off the map, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, you're out in Mexico. We were teenagers, and yeah, I mean that was the first time we did it without supervision at all, and we found ourselves out in the middle of nowhere, with just our wits, and we ran into some adventures, and we got in and out of a little bit of scuffle, and but for the most part it was beautiful. It was all beautiful, actually. The little scuffle, just had to do with a little bit of money. I mean, everybody's going to overcharge you, and you end up in a tight situation where how are we going to get home, and those kind of things. But we had been around the world, with our parents, and knew enough to know that how to deal with these situations. But when you're out there, you're out there. There's no one's gonna help you. There's no call. There was no phone. You know, and the funniest thing was being a surfer. My brother and I would go on safaris throughout our life, and we would meet in the most bizarre places and go where there was no phone and no cell service or anything like that. And my girlfriend would she, being from North Carolina, did not even could not comprehend this. That, like, no, I'm going to where there is nothing. There's no plumbing. There's no phone. There's no nothing.
Right.
Literally, the only thing that there are there is waves that we can surf. And we go through the jungle, and you're 6 hours away from the nearest telephone, and you
Yeah.
know there's nothing but like a village, a little fishing village there with natives, and you know you go out there, and the coolest thing is there's people from around, surfers from around the world in this little spot, and so we can meet people from all over the world, and but we're all surfers. That we're there for the wave, and there's really no other reason to be there unless you're a fisherman from that village or you like surfing. And so we would pick spots like that around the world that not many people would have gone to, and because
Well,
we wanted that feeling of a safari, of a like an adventure, where and you just there's fewer and fewer places like that nowadays. You know what I mean?
right. Right. Really. I
Yeah.
know. I know. Well, there's surfers out here all the time, whether it's freezing cold, whether it's raining, whether it's a hurricane. They're out surfing. It's
Oh,
just
that
amazing.
break under the Golden Gate Bridge is incredible. That is incredible. And people always ask me, what about sharks? What about this and that? And the funny thing is I was telling a friend that a shark, the chances of getting hit by a shark out there are
Oh yeah.
are about 100 times less, 1,000 times less than you getting found by a bear in the wood. More than likely, you will be found by a bear in the wood far faster than you'll be found by a shark in the ocean. And as I'm telling them the story, that was when the footage came out of an orca uh, eating an orca pod eating a great white shark, right under the Golden Gate Bridge.
Oh my,
And that's
oh
where
my
I
God.
was gonna go surfing there with my brother. But he was like, "You're crazy." I was like, "Man, it just doesn't, it doesn't happen very often, you know."
Well, yeah, I know. Actually, one time when I was living in New Jersey, that's where I grew up, and we were only a few blocks away from the ocean. And at the next ocean to where we used to go, the next town, someone was knee deep in the ocean, this man, and a shark bit his leg off.
Wow.
And I was a nurse's aide at the time. I think I was in high school, and we were nurses' aides. And I was in the hospital and could hear him screaming. I mean, this was really, really, I'll never forget that. It was like, oh my God, And a year later, I remember seeing his picture in the newspaper getting married. He had a prosthetic leg, and yeah, but
Wow.
it happens. What's been happening now is a couple of weeks ago went to the beach, and there was a whale that had washed up on the beach.
Mhm.
And I just read that there's another big whale that washed up on a beach in San Francisco. So for some reason, that's been happening on the beaches here in California this summer. Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
What's washing up on the beach?
Whales,
Oh, whales are.
yeah.
Well, that's not good.
And they say that it looks like they've been hit by boats or ships. That's their explanation. I don't know what's really happening, because it's been several. It's not just one or two. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that's horrific.
Very,
Yeah,
not very
I heard
nice.
there's a lot of problems in California right now, especially like in the cities in California. San Francisco is pretty much overrun with a transient kind of town within a town. On the Tenderloin, there's just nothing but homeless people and stuff like that. I heard.
Oh, it's terrible. California is beautiful. I love it. I've loved it since I moved out, and I moved out in 1965, which was a very good year to move out here. And but it's too expensive. There's many homeless people, and there's a lot of people in prison. I mean, we have, I love California, but it has a lot of problems right now. And the homeless situation is completely out of hand, especially in the Los Angeles area. Terrible.
Yeah, I've heard it's getting. I mean, you keep hearing critical, but we've been hearing critical for 30 years. And now it's just insane. There's just
Yeah.
people ask me if I'm glad I moved to North Carolina, and I have to be honest, I miss the beach very much, and I love it.
Yeah.
But I don't miss that the overpriced, the traffic, the crowds, and all of that kind of thing. The taxes are insane, and people are just getting removed from their homes everywhere.
Oh, I know. They're taking over all these places like the Mission District and everything. And what do they call it? Not restoration, but gentlemanization or something.
And they're just going to jack up the rent more, and
Oh yeah, no, and I mean, California, it's like what, the fourth largest economy in the world. So there's absolutely no justification for this happening at all. It's just sad. It's sad.
well, the capitalists would say the exact opposite. They'd say the reason why we're doing so good is because we're doing this to so many people. That's why it's working. It's and I don't know if that's the proper phrase, or if that's proper take, but that is, capitalism is it's so brutal. In
Yeah,
some ways, there is no safety net. I from my
no.
own experience, I was you know, as much as I knew about it, or had heard about it, you really don't get a sense of, you know, what it's like until you're in a situation where you're like, holy, you know, wait a minute, you know, you try to explain your situation, and the next thing you know, you're just another person in a line, you know, having with a story, you know, and it's like, oh my gosh, you know, this is really happening. You know, I'm going to be disabled and on the street, you know, and it was a
Uh,
long, long haul. And if I had not had, you know, the support that I did from my friends, you know, that my lifelong friends, I would not, I would not be here. There's no way. Yeah, I would be.
wow. So as far as the veterans, did they help you at all?
The who?
Veterans, you were a veteran,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yes, and you know, yes and no. I mean, yes. Now I'm taken care of now, but it's they really have to watch out for fraud and stuff like that, and they really make it hard. You can't just. It's not like. I mean, they literally crippled me in an operation, and I'm still going through the process. But I'm to the point now where you know I'm going to live. I'm going to survive, and I have money enough, and you know I'm you know I'm in a situation now where uh, I'm gonna be the oh, what's it called? The house that I'm living in now. My friend is getting older. He's passing on. He has to be treated for a disabled son, mentally challenged son, and so I'm going to be the executor of his will, and so I will have you know the house is paid for. So with the money that I get from the government and from the VA and from the civilian government, I will be okay. But this has
That's
been
great.
30 years of a process.
Yeah.
I've gone through this thing now for literally 30 years now, or it's actually, yeah, it's something like that, 30, 35 years.
Really? You were
Um,
just really young, huh?
I was very young and I didn't want to ask anybody for anything. So I just worked until I couldn't walk. I could barely walk. And then when I finally did get the surgery, which took 7 years, um, I got crippled in the surgery. And so, but they just immediately assume that you're just going for disability. And I'm like, man, you know, I'm not going for anything. I am disabled. And so you have to prove that they did it, you know, and it's like, well, I walked into the hospital and I haven't walked since. So what do you want me to say?
Wow.
What do you want? You know, and they said, well, how do we know that? You know, yeah, I mean, so now
Oh,
I'm going to,
God.
yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
be it's never ending process. And I recently messed up and have you know have gone back down some, but there's a you know there it's just a really complicated, brutal process that you know it's not easy. And but at the same time, I am here now and cannot complain because I see one of the things is the opium. It's like they want to give you opium, and you know it's really tempting because it feels so good. You know the the medication, and
Yeah.
but if I had gotten on that medication, I wouldn't have been able to go through the process. And eventually, I'm convinced that you know, there's no way I would have made it. So you hear a lot about vets dying, and it has a lot to do with losing a will to fight because you're in pain. They're giving you enough opium to kill yourself, and you lose hope. You lose the will,
Oh, yeah.
and a lot of guys just end up, and even by accident, taking that stuff because I didn't know anything about it. And then he sent me home with this stuff, and man, it felt so good. I was like, oh my god, it's amazing. And I realized really fast, I was like, this is not good. I'm not gonna,
Wow.
yeah, I'm not gonna be able to fight, you know. And that's what I thought, and I, you know, that's what it is. A lot of guys, you just can't manage that kind of accessibility to that kind of just vacation from your body. And what happens is people get addicted, and by either mistake or just by just you know losing the will to live, they commit
Yeah.
suicide or accidentally die. And that way the government doesn't have to pay them, and you know, they don't have to go through it. So you have to fight this process, and you have to go through it. I'm now in, like I said, in a position that you know, I'm okay. So
Yeah, thank God. Well,
yeah,
yeah, well, you've
yeah.
been through a lot.
But that's why there's so many people on the street. That's why there's so many vets on the street. It's so hard, so difficult. And if I had not, you know, taken care of my friend when he was hurting, I helped him pay for his house, essentially, back when I had money, and he repaid me by letting me
Yeah,
when I was down. And
great.
so it worked out that way. You know, it's just a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. You know that, you know, when I had my own business, you know, I would help him, and I made his life a lot easier. And then when you know, when I lost everything, including my health, he was there for me. I just
Oh
had
my
my
God. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
yeah. So it's but again, that's just something to be grateful for. And it wasn't intentional, although I thought, you know, yeah, you know, he's my friend, and he's got the task out. And it was the same thing. He just reciprocated when I needed it. So it was a it's you know, I have no complaint. I can't complain.
Well, that's great. Yeah. Well, when I went to India, I had saved up a lot of money, and I had um, taken out my teachers, you know, whatever was accumulating from the few years that I had taught. If you're not going to be teaching continually for a few years, you have to take it out. So I had some money. So I had some money when I went to India. I wasn't expecting to stay there for 10 years.
Yeah.
And after like 3 years, because it was very inexpensive there, and we traveled around. We went to Bali, we went to Thailand, we went to some places. And then I ran out of money. My daughter was born, I ran out of money. Well, talk about friends, you know, it's just amazing how miracles happened. My son was talking about it the other day when we were living up in the Himalayas one time. And I used to make marmalade and sell it at the flea markets. You know, I did things like that. And, or if a friend came to stay, they could stay with us for a while, and then they'd leave me all their things when they left to go back. I mean, and this one time we were in the mountains, and we were kind of snowed in our little hut. There was nobody around. We were up in the mountains at 8,000 feet, and we couldn't see any neighbors. Actually, we could see the little temple, the Buddhist little monastery, very small, down the street, and that's all. So I didn't know how I was going to get to the store to get food, and we had nothing. My son said, "Mom, somebody is walking up the mountain to our house." And I looked out. This was a man that I had taken care of somebody's house in Goa one time. And he had stayed there, and he had robbed me. And here he is. He's coming back. Hold on 1 minute. Hello.
Are you busy?
I can get off in 1 minute. Come in, bring him in. So it was somebody that, and then here he was, and he had a big round of cheese and some money and a doll for Siva. And I mean, it was like a miracle, you know, but he wanted to pay me back. And so that's what it is. Well, my little grandchildren are here. But we can come back. And so I'm going to get off now and take care of them. And there's my little grandson. Come here, Gabriel. Come here. You can't, you gotta, yeah, you gotta lower the thing.
Hey, Gabriel.
There's Gabriel and Giovanna. Yeah,
Hey,
there
Giovanna.
they are. There he is.
Ma'am.
Yeah,
Man,
that's a man. That's a man. Yeah.
Mommy.
Yeah. All right. Been great talking to you.
You
And
too. Thank you so much for stopping by. I
it was
really
wonderful. Thank you.
talk to you later.
Bye now. All right.
Yeah, we could have come back. They just started fighting, and so we were like,
Hey, Arthur. Thank you so much, Arthur. I'm sorry it's not more about non-duality.
Hey, Howard, can you hear me? Can you hear me, Howard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, that was really great. I love listening to Kokila. That was really nice.
Isn't that a beautiful story?
Yeah, I love the whole thing. Yeah, just love listening to people, you know, everywhere they've been, what they've been doing, where they are now. But I didn't know your story. That's quite a story you told there, you know.
Yes, sir. It's a long haul, long haul.
Yeah, I had no idea about that.
Hey, let me try to put these headphones on one more time because
Okay.
it's really hard with. Let me be right back. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me still?
Okay. Yes, awesome. They're working again.
Yeah,
It was killing me
strange.
with. Yeah, it was killing me with Kokila because I was so glad that I could see her mouth moving because I was having to read her lips a lot.
Right.
But yes, she now it's working beautifully.
Yeah, that's weird.
Thank you so much for breaking your silence, Arthur. I'm grateful for that.
Well, I don't normally like to speak, just like to listen. But seeing it's just the two of us, can't just look at each other.
Well, is there something that you'd like to talk about?
Well, not really. I mean, I love your what you're doing on Facebook. I really love that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
love that place. And earlier, I was listening to Andrew, one of his talks on YouTube. I think it was with Ilango.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I only got about 20 minutes through it, so I'll watch the rest another time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Andrew's he's my tech guy. So he's actually learning how to do his stuff, his page, his videos and stuff. And which is great for me because he can practice on his stuff. And like tomorrow, you know, he's going to start helping me load stuff on my page and my YouTube page, which I don't know if you heard me. I decided to call it Bedside Manner with Howard.
Yeah, I love that. Perfect. That's perfect.
So yeah, I got a little banner up there and everything for the. So yeah, you know, there's a lot of things that you know, that he's helping me do, and I'm really grateful for. Yeah.
No, he's a great guy. I like him. I've had a few chats with him on the messaging, and cool guy.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
But you were saying if there was anything I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
I mean, I've been seeing in this sort of way for a long time. I wouldn't say I was a seeker anymore, but I do like listening to people to see their take on everything.
I do too. Yes.
Yeah. But for me, it started when I was about 8.
Nice.
Yeah.
Me too.
Oh, right. Okay. That's a weird age then, isn't it?
Yes.
But I'd be going to bed at night, lying on the bed, and it was as if my consciousness would shrink down to the size of a pinhead, and I could see the whole room from that view down on the carpet. And then suddenly the consciousness would be the whole room. And but it felt as if there was just the consciousness and everything was made of it. And that stayed for years and years and years into my late teens. But I would never talk to anyone about it because no one ever talked about these things. I mean, this was back in the the early 70s by then. I just wondered if you'd heard of anything like that, this shrinking down and expanding.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I myself, have had these kind of experiences where I could be a pinpoint in a corner of a room, looking at the room, looking at me as another object in the room, or it is expanding out like that, as consciousness being everything, except for I when for me it's the lack of a mechanism in that regard. It's no longer consciousness as I understand consciousness. Because it's not a mechanism. It's, I mean, as far as the perspective of a point in a tiny point somewhere in your immediate experience, or being the totality of your immediate experience, has to do with, well, has to do with that story of self, and learning about its subjective, that subjective nature. Whereas now I look at it more of, there's no subjective or objective, in that there's no one thinking, there's no consciousness, because, and this is where really everything truly loses its tether, from this perspective. And it's not even a perspective, but in any case, because you are not the object of your brain, you cannot know that object exists objectively. So you have to you have a story that a mind tells, thought tells, consciousness tells, about a happening in time and space. And that has individually and identity, and as far as identity is concerned, that story has to do with a brain that exists, a body carries it around in time and space, matter and motion, cause and effect. Your brain culminates into mind and consciousness, telling a story to the self, which is undefinable, because the self is a conglomeration of a lot of different things. It's a story about an individual without the individual. Because you are not your brain, you can't be your mind or your thoughts, and therefore self is always what is being told a story, but never with any foundation. There's never a time when any knowledge or understanding, or any theory could actually be objectively true. And so therein lies, at least from this perspective, the lack of a subject or object, and just the story. So from that point now, like whether it be a tiny point in a corner of a room, or the totality of the immediate experience and beyond, whatever that might mean, that is just a story without a consciousness, without a thought is a part of it, rather than consciousness being the totality of it. You're actually a character in a story, rather than the consciousness that is the subject, and the objects that are relative to you are objectively real. Well, that cannot be known. And because that cannot be known, everything that has to do with the self and other is a story. And even a picture of your own brain, and there are many ways, many reasons why I came to that. I can't even say understanding, but that is just the nature of reality as it appears. There is no objective truth, because there's no objective self to anchor itself into any kind of experience. There is a conglomeration and a story about identity and an individual that is viewing other things in the universe relative to itself. but that self is subjective on the level of mind. Like as far as I am thinking, I think, or I am here now speaking with you conceptually or subjectively. That is the appearance of a couple of individuals having a conversation in time and space. But in reality, it's just the story of that, and it's not the actual event. So in that way, it appears to exist in this way, but does not exist as it appears. So it does and does not exist. And so that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's just the story of individuals, story of that subjective knowledge on the level of mind, the subjective mind, in that the mind cannot be validated objectively, no matter how obvious it appears that an individual is in time and space, aware of others. There is no way for that to be validated and considered objectively true. There will never be a time where that can happen. Never being, a weird term to use. There has never been either time or space in this respect, because there is no individual that is relative to another object, and therefore time itself is the illusion that there is matter in motion, whereas all of this is just a story of that rather than that actuality.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've just said. The strange thing is, I could read something Romana might have said, or Mr. Godata, or Tony Parsons, and I said, you can agree with everything that's being said,
Yeah.
not all of it, but most of it.
Yeah, it's
It all
beautiful.
seems, yeah, so that's what I didn't realize till a few years ago, that you didn't have to be saying it one way. Everything's valid. But the way I started with it as a child was that analogy with the movie seemed to have stuck with me for a long time.
Yeah.
You see the characters on the screen,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not actually thinking anything or doing anything, but
right.
It was as if I was one of them characters. And it's a strange thing. Like you knew you was a character, but you also felt as if you was real at the same time. It's even today, I don't know. You'd think you would be set in one way of seeing this, but it doesn't seem to be that way. I can go from seeing it as the one big self with the capital S, as they say, and simultaneously being the little s, the little self.
Yes.
None of it's real. Everything's real.
Mm-hmm.
It's here. It's not here.
Right.
There's nothing happening. Everything's happening.
Yeah.
You forget half the time. You just forget, and you're just in the shop or you're at work. And then there's the times when you suddenly, as if you're remembering that this is all whatever it is.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Yes.
No, that's it.
Well, I'd love to say yes. Suddenly, I wanted to interject that because it feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like there's like suddenly there's this brush where you're reminded that this is truly not real. This is truly just not separate. There's no, there is no time or space or dimension, and those increments, those little, paradoxically impossible things to talk about, are just like everything else. Nothing is literal, and so you really can't speak of anything. It's not just that you can't speak of these appearances of brushes with infinity, but it's literally that there are no words, in fact, that can cover anything. You literally are like just dumbstruck, or it's just, you can't. There's nothing you can say, and those kind of increments are a part of the rest of the tapestry, and that you were speaking of. And I just wanted to interject that. I'm sorry I interrupted.
No, not at all. That's fine. That's good. I always thought that you know, they called it the shift or whatever. I thought once that apparently happened, you would be set, done, and one way of seeing permanently. But
Right.
it's not so at all.
Yeah.
You could listen to one speaker and yeah, that's right, and another one, and on it goes. But it, I was saying to someone recently on the messaging, it's almost as if there's so much nothing that it becomes something.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and there's so much something that it becomes nothing. And at the end of the day, earlier, what you were saying to Kokila, really, you just get on with it. You just, you know, you're just getting on with life. I don't know what to make of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you know, I revert to Andreas, you know, what he said to me in that interview, and I agree with in that all of these different ways of looking at it and all of these ways of dealing with the apparent reality, it doesn't really even need to be understood that it's apparent. You know, it's not something that even is necessary in that regard, in that, you know, we know that or I know, or it's known, can't even be said that, you know, there is a subject or an object. And so nothing is conceptual, nothing is subjective or objective. And what is happening, it just seems to be happening of its own volition. But there always is that mechanism of self that comes in and thinks, you know, and there's no way not to. There's no way not to interact with this movie, you know, without thinking that you're actually the character that you're playing. You know, you actually, you know, think you're thinking, you think you're doing something, and you can catch yourself in that and say, you know, get caught up in the story, or I believe this, or this is true, or that is false, or I am, you know, actually accomplishing something, or I failed. All of these different emotions and these sensations have to do with the character, you know, and that's just you, you know, and you being that appearance, but not necessarily the actual you. That all of it uh, doesn't even have to be recognized, you know. And once you see it, you know, paradoxically, that enlightenment or whatever you want to say it is, you know, shift in experience, I think, you know, something like that. Once you recognize it, it's not necessary, you know. It's almost but then again, just like you said, it is necessary for the character, because for me, I have to step back on occasion and, you know, realize I'm being caught up in my story. I'm getting upset. Things aren't going my way, um, or for whatever reason, you know, I feel like I'm becoming contracted into this feeling of separation and loneliness, or whatever that might be. I, you know, generally don't get that, but I do on occasion, you know, feel as if um, something is wrong, you know, and then and I have to revert back to that understanding that this is not a me, um, you know, failing or succeeding. This is the story of a me thinking it has a choice and a will and knowledge or understanding. And it's so paradoxical, because that can't it just it can't be. And from that awareness, from that awakening, say, you realize it can't be that, it isn't that, you know. But you could still get caught up in the story, like you were saying. And and it's just another aspect, almost, you know, it's almost like another dimension of emotion or perspective, in that, or like that shift, in that you're seeing yourself as an actor on a screen, yet this is the screen, you're in the screen, you know what I mean? So it's yeah, it's one of those things that just cannot be said. And and paradoxically, it's beautiful beyond measure. And some people not so much. I mean, there's always that aspect of them, that aspect of others, the story of another that thinks that this is depressing, or that somehow this isn't what they wanted, and I personally find this right here now, that cannot be explained with a million years. You could not explain this moment. There's no way to, and there's no way to tell it as a story, that would even sound reasonable, because there's no explanation. And so in that way, this moment is infinite for me. And even that is, I mean, having to do with time and dimension and, individual, and separation. But in that way, in the context of the two of us, just exchanging ideas, it is both infinite and finite simultaneously. And that, to me, is one of the most amazing things about the character in the story, the character of me, that I seem to have gone beyond dimension at times, brushes with this beyond the character kind of aspect. But that is still just this, that is just this. But it's impossible. It's impossible to put a fence around, and or even separate anything within it. So, and in any respect, no matter how you want to look at it, even if you think it is separate, the universe can't be. If it's either infinite or finite. If it's finite, then then it's relative to something else. And if it's not finite, then it's not relative to anything, and therefore what appears to be within it is the illusion of separation. Not separation itself. It's relative to no position. So, that, and what that does to time itself, what it does to, how we approach what appears to be an individual navigating space and time, and all of that not being separate, is absolutely incredible to me. I just love it.
Well, see, that's the thing. Some speakers talk about it as if there's some sort of energy here, and it's sort of vibrating as a human being, as a tree, as everything. And then you get the impression they're saying that there's a formation, a pattern that is a human being, and it has a brain, and the brain is thinking this or thinking that, and then there's a story being told, through thought, and there's a confusion. You take yourself to be those thoughts, that character, that story.
Mm-hmm.
But they're sort of implying that there's an actual human being there,
Right.
That's confused. Something's confused there. I'm taking myself to be the story when really I'm this overall whatever is here. And then there's the other version, more like the Tony Parsons, where there's just this, whatever this is, and there's no actual people, no separation at all. Mm-hmm. And it's just I as a character believing I'm saying this, thinking this. And I sort of switch from one to the other. I can never settle, I'm never firmly in one camp or the other. And there's so many other different versions as well.
Right.
But mainly for me, it feels as if this is just like the movie. And something, even though it's a thought that's claiming to know I am a character as part of the movie,
Well, in one respect, yes. And in another respect, no. In that, well, right. It's all yes and no. Well, in that, if I may, the there being anything beyond this immediate experience, okay, is unknowable. Okay, you can't. The beyond immediate experience is a story, essentially. So with this immediate experience, it is much like the universe as a whole, if you believed in separation and the expanding universe, evolution, the Big Bang, all of that. So it is literally not relative to another position. So instead of believing the story of the universe and the expanding evolution and yada yada yada, okay, just look at it as insane as it is, that this immediate experience is the totality of existence as can be known, or through separation, or through your mind of sensation, and through this experience of individualities and objects and space and time and motion and cause and effect. All of it is relative to no position. This immediate experience is the story of all of that, simply because the assumption is that there is a universe beyond immediate experience, and all of these things are coming from a cause. Somebody invented the computer, the phone. Buddha was something that existed thousands of years ago, or a man, what have you. The lamp, electricity, all of it, everything came from a place, and it was created through X, Y, and Z. Even the trees outside, the birds, the whole nine. Natural is no different from what appears to be man-made, which always makes me laugh, because it's like assuming men are humans aren't natural. But in any case, what appears to be man-made, what appears to be natural, all coming from from years ago, growing and becoming something that we are experiencing here now. And that is the story of time and space and separation, in that it is beyond this immediate experience. It is the thought of a mechanism, or it's a reason, a purpose, a meaning. It's a cause, it's a source. Okay, it's energy being transferred through time and space, evolving, becoming, all of that stuff, awareness, even experience, even all of that is that story of what cannot be known, which is beyond the immediate experience. These things did not culminate from something something else. This literally is the the totality, and that totality is relative to nothing, to no position. And so when you go to your grocery store tonight, you take your totality with you, or you take totality with you. There is nothing beyond your totality. So from that position of no position, uh, the story of a you know, uh, experiencing objects in time and space is the totality. It's like the totality is expressing the two of us having a conversation right now in this time and place. But there is no explanation for that or cause for that. There is, there literally is appearing as time and space within this story, but it is because it is relative to no position, and the story of how all of this appears to be here is simply a story that can't be objectively verified. Just like a future cannot be objectively verified, the past cannot be known or objectively verified. Therefore, the consciousness, the mind, the brain, the body, the biology of the emotion, somebody feeling that they are here, all of this here now cannot be known, because you cannot know objectively the source for your thought, which would be, according to the story, your brain. And so all of this appearing as knowledge and understanding and communication is what the totality is expressing. In instead of, like a solipsist would say, you are creating your reality um, from your point of view, from your consciousness. all things exist and nothing exists beyond your consciousness. Uh, Somebody that believed in separation in time and space would say, you know, well, let me just say that that solipsist would consider that immediate experience their room. You know, it's their room of totality. Everything within that room is from their vantage point, their consciousness, and nothing exists beyond it. Then you have the room of time and space, the universe of separation, where somebody thinks that they are navigating a time and a place in a unique way, because no two people can experience time and space in the same way. So they are alone in that, you know, and cannot know objectively whether or not that's real, but that's okay. Solipsist cannot know whether or not that's real, but that's okay. There are two rooms of experience. Then you have non-duality as it is being expressed here, in that the room exists and with a you in it, you know, with the story of you in time and space, you know, relative to other things. Okay. So the only difference would be that in this non-duality room, there is no story believed. There's no story that is taken on, you know, uh, for whatever reason. You know, it's just that you don't exist as an individual apart from the rest of the stuff in the room. You are just another part of the story. And that is the movie, so to speak. That is the screen. The immediate experience is not a flat screen. It's this conglomeration of wherever you appear to look, you know, that's what it becomes. And but it's not you looking and that being the pinnacle of existence, the pinnacle being the totality, and you're just a part of it. And conscious sensation is part of your character. So that's, you know, I'm sorry if
Yeah.
I went on a
No,
tangent.
no,
Yeah.
perfect. That's exactly how it feels at the moment. What you
Yeah.
just said, that the latter part. But for years, I used to try, and when they used to say there isn't anything actually happening, I used to
Right.
try to think, or there was thinking about how that could work. And one of the things I came up with, was that there's always this present moment, but it seems to be imbued with a fake history, as if the pyramids were built thousands of years ago and all this stuff happened, but it
Right.
didn't happen. It's appearing now
Mm.
as part of this moment. So in that sense, nothing ever happened. That's the nearest you could get to it, I think, with thought. Yeah.
It truly is. It's that depth of what appears to be the depth of consciousness or the depth of understanding of experience. There, all of this history that we can put within this immediate experience. It seems like my memory when you said uh, pyramid, I immediately go to what I know about pyramids or what I know about this or that or the other. But I don't know. I don't know any of that. All of that is just the suggestion of a memory that really is, completely illusionary, because for the obvious reasons that I've already spoken about the not knowing the source of your thought. So all of it, no matter how you want to look at it, whether you want to be a solipsist or a separatist or a non-dualist, is just part of the story, and how an individual looks at it is completely irrelevant. It's what is will be, regardless of that want or need or desire to encompass it into some kind of package that you can say, well, that's it. It's impossible to do, and it's so amazing in that way. There's so many analogies you can use for that. That throughout the years, you have these different teachers and these different speakers, in the apparency of time and space, all the way through to, the beginning of time for humans. Um, all of that is appearing now, just like the pyramid, just like, just like anything else that having to do with knowledge or understanding or memory or hopes for the future, all of it kind of, going into this blissful kind of weird, conglomeration of this here now, making it somehow, seem more real. It seems so tangible because, all of these things are not just pictures, but you actually connect, these feelings to these memories to when you learned about the pyramid or when you talked to Tony Parsons or when, you know what I mean? So all of these things seem like they're happening in a linear time and a linear secular chain of events. And, sometimes that feels great. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's never actual. There's not really a Tony Parsons. There's not really a time in which you talk to him, but there's that story of that time and that conversation. And that brings up an emotion and it brings up this feeling of this and that. And so whether it's not actual or if it is actual, really truly is irrelevant because, to the individual, there is really no actual at all. There's no basis in which to say that is that is even a happening or not a happening. It's impossible. It's just so paradoxical.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, no matter what way you look at it, whether you're a guy on the street who believes this is all separation, I'm an individual having an experience, whatever way you look at it, there is no escape. It is, as they call it, the present moment. You can't step out of this, get some sort of bird's eye view outside of it. It's always just here. And you can never look back at the moment previous or the next moment. Like they say, that's seamless. It's just now, but not even now.
Yeah.
I like what they say. The, when you don't have any words to say anything, it's just there seems to be a present awareness that is just everything. But see, the words again, like they say, it's just so limiting. Yeah, I mean, how can you capture this with words? So I just stay with. Sometimes when the mind, there's no thoughts there. That's as far as you could go. I mean, if you're not seeing this, if you haven't had that shift, and someone was asking about it, that's the nearest I could say. Well, if he was there without any thought, talking about this experience, then that's as, or even, I don't know if you've heard of Douglas Harding, The Headless Way.
Yeah.
If you visualize not having a head and everything's just appearing in that space, whether it's the glasses on your head, they're not your glasses, they're just an experience there. But it's not even an experience. I think the more you talk, the worse it gets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I had an interview with Douglas Harding's executor of his will, actually, and he's a great guy, the Headless Way. But I think, or I can't remember. I'm so sorry.
Richard Lang, I think.
Richard Lang, yes. And sorry, thank you so much. But yeah, he's an amazing guy. Truly a beautiful, beautiful story. The whole thing's amazing. But yeah, for me, starting like with the words, words clearly, assume time and space. So, as soon as you're talking, but you could be talking to yourself. The point being, words assume time and space. Words assume 2 points at the minimum of time and space, in that I am saying something and you are hearing something. But what the words are alluding to is that there is no time or space or points therein, and therefore the words don't exist as words. They appear to exist between two characters, but they don't exist in any actual sense because there is no separation. So that's why you can't really say, yeah, you can't name it, you can't talk about it because it's the exact opposite of what words are. And so, in that respect, it literally is unspeakable, unnameable. And yes, Richard Lang, I must admit, I have not got that. I don't know how to operate that headless space. I think I understand it. I just don't understand it the way they're doing it. Like to say that they're, I think I understand what he's saying, but I'm not absolutely sure like what his perspective is from the headless space. As far as I know, there's a big self and a little self, and with he's got a whole big thing going on there that I have not looked into enough, and I feel like I would be you know remiss. I would be incorrect because I don't know enough about it. But from what I gather, I do like where he's going with it. It just assumes objects, and he's doing it. It's just another, or it's not just another. It's a beautiful way of showing thinglessness, but he still believes in a cause and an effect, a mechanism, and time and space. And I was wondering, I asked him a couple of questions. He didn't really want to get into what I'm talking about so much as a question, like who are you and why do you want me to why are you interviewing me? And it wasn't like that. He was a very gracious and beautiful guy and all of that stuff, but I don't think that we're talking about the same thing. I believe he thinks he is in time and space, and he has some kind of relationship with the big self, which is timeless. So it's both yes and no. But I need to know more about it from his perspective before I can say anything educated on the subject. But yes, he's got a whole different way of looking at it. Um, I don't know enough about Richard Lang yet. Yeah.
Well, as far as I could gather, when he says point to he tells you to point at different objects and name them, and then gradually you're meant to turn the finger back to yourself, your face, and what do you see there? And obviously you can't see your own face, so it's supposedly meant to give you some sort of sense that there isn't anybody here, like an observer, but maybe it's just some sort of taste, or it gives you some sort of taste of it, and I think maybe we're supposed to progress from there in that version. Perhaps.
I would agree with that. I think, and again, coming from a place of just a observation, a casual observation, with respect and gratitude, in no way being negative. I agree with what you just said. It is the what do they call that? A method in which to maybe get a little more subjective understanding of the nature of self.
Yeah.
The nature of that and maybe progress into a non-duality. But the method is ultimately dualistic in that there's a big self and a little self. So that's kind of a story about whatever you want to say the big self is and the little self. So, I mean, essentially it's coming from that conceptual or that mind, even from a headless point of view, in that there, for me, there are no things, there is no, so like you said, it might be a progression kind of thing and I just can't see it, but it's, I don't get the pointing and the, that kind of thing where he's got the different cards where you you lose yourself in the car. I just never, I haven't been able to make that connection yet.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but for me, when I first tried that pointing at my face, you do get a sort of a little shock that there isn't anybody, you can't see
Right.
anything there.
There's no face. There's no
Yeah,
face.
so
Yeah.
you get some sort of sense of it. But to be fair, I don't know too much about it, so we're doing injustice to them to talk about it any further, I suppose. But it still did feel like it was a nice feeling. And yeah, but where do you stand with this, say like with Romana, where he's saying there's just the self? You know?
Oh, well, I would, yeah, okay. He's the, again, I just read that book last week, the one that Kokila sent me, My Lord, something or other. And it's, what is it? I'm trying to, were you here last weekend or last week?
No.
Well, we went over, Kokila sent me a book from Ramana, and it's a beautiful book. Let me see if I can find it real quick. I had to lower my bed. So amazing. Oh gosh. One second. Oh, there it is. Oh. Mm-hmm. Here I am. Sorry about that. Yeah, but here's this book. Oh, here it is.
All right.
Let me see if I can't get it outside. Okay. So yeah, we're doing this thing. She sent me this. Can you see the title?
Yep, I can see it.
Yeah. Hard is thy name, O Lord. And so I read it, and from what I can understand is he's not actually saying. I think he's more non-dualistic than the words let on. In that he's not actually talking about a God. He's not talking about a deity, and he's not talking about a self. He's saying that the deity and the self are the same thing. And he uses words like consciousness and immediate experience as being the same thing. And what I think he means is what we're talking about. There is no, there is nobody thinking. There is no separation, and there is no individual in time and space. There's simply the appearance of that in the immediate experience. And that is what he's calling God, consciousness, and self as the same thing. It's the same with the Krishna and Shiva and all of that kind of stuff. It's essentially the same thing we're saying. So you can use what it goes back to these other teachings like you were talking about. People use different language. They use different methods. Just like Lang. He's using a method. It is incredibly successful. A lot of people seem to benefit from it, and that's a beautiful thing. Some things may seem to coalesce with what's going on with you, and other things may not. But and that is all just part of the immediate experience, part of the love of, and there you go with unconditional love. I mean, why does it have to be something that comports with me? Who am I, and what is that? According to this, I am everything. Okay, so I am, self is God, and immediate and none of it. All three of those things: immediate experience, self, and God. None of it and all of it. It has nothing to do with those things as individual. Like a God would, in my the way I look at it, a God requires duplicity. It requires something that is not God. So if everything is God, okay, then this is everything. And there is no, so if self is everything, then everything, and then self is God, God is self, and everything is just everything as it appears. But it's not beyond but it's not beyond that immediate experience. There's nothing beyond this, because it's none of the three things are separate. All three of those things seem to be happening, like the Buddha and the bottle cap and the computer and, you know, the trash can. Everything is happening right here in this, you know, apparent now. You know, it seems like a point in time and a place, but that's the story of individuals in space and time. So, and you know, the whole idea of God, you know, that just constantly comes up in these discussions, you know, that is part of it. You know, the grasping for a something, the grasping for a dualism or a thing, you know, to say that there's not a God or there is a God is equally ridiculous for the individual, because if God exists and he is everything, then I am God. And to ask if there's a God is God asking if he himself exists, which he cannot know if that is true, because we don't have an objective truth in which to base any of this on. So, you know, and immediate experience being all that can be quote unquote known. How do you even say that? Because there's nothing to know and no one to know it. And you know what I mean? And you know, so it's so what is right or wrong? You know, what is true or false? And that's the beauty of it. You know, I mean, that's what's amazing. But everybody's got their own way. You know, every you know, they like this is the kind of language that for a while would totally, you know, I'd buy the book and read it, and then there were other times in my parent life where this I would not even touch it with a 10-foot pole, and now it feels like it's just something a friend of mine wrote. You know, you know, it's not either true nor false. It's just another guy, you know, talking about the nature of existence.
Well, I think you're right about if ever I read some Ramana, if I just put say modern language on it, I think you're right. He's talking about the exact same thing. I don't think he's talking about anything different than what you're saying. Definitely, actually. But something, I mean, yeah, we talk about this unknowing, but what about if this actually does know? I mean, you get the people that talk about this actually does know it's present, and it's almost in a communication with itself. It's in its own presence, or it knows itself through the appearance. Have you got any thoughts about any of that?
Sure, it's you know, much like that, the story of God or the story of self, the story of immediate experience, um, knowledge. Uh, in the outset cannot be objectively verified. You know, you cannot know a thing. There is no, even if you believe in separate, excuse me, even if you believe in separation, you cannot define an object. There is no definition of a thing in physics. There are ideas and there are um, examples of theories like, but every theory starts with, we are going to make this point an objective reality, and from that objective reality we will make tests, we will do things that verify what we're saying is actually true. The standard model of physics, the quantum field theory, uh, these are examples of how physicality and observation can verify how objects appear to react to one another, or interact with each other in as they appear. But uh, you can't define an object. You can't, you know, there is no definition for a thing or energy. There's no you know, there's no way for you to explain how a thing moves. E equals mc squared would suggest that energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, where but energy equals mass. Energy is defined in physics by saying that an object or work being done on an work being done on an object. But if an object is energy, you know, as mass times the speed of light squared, then it's like saying energy equals energy, because energy itself is created by work being done. But if the things that are doing the work are made of energy, then energy equals energy. And Einstein says this, it prefaces it before his paper. This cannot be objectively real. But this is how it appears. Things are reacting or acting with each other. And this is, you know, furthering that understanding. We were talking about, you said, I'm sorry, I lost what was your question again? I'm sorry.
I think I've forgotten myself.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me think.
Oh, what did I think about something?
We was talking about the could this be a self that knows itself through the appearance, something like that?
Oh, something about knowledge, yes.
Oh yeah,
And,
knowledge. Yeah.
So let's say within that parameter that there are things in time and space. Let's assume it, because you can't know it. As obvious as it appears, it cannot be known objectively. So you can't know the thing, the neuron that creates uh, the transmitter of your brain. You know, all the different little things that happen within that organ that you know receives signals from a nervous system and then transmits them to a self. You know, well, because we cannot objectively verify that an object actually exists other than how it appears, because there is no definition for an object on in as far as we know, the standard model of physics and the quantum field theory, both are real within, is it 13 digits or something like that? It's some ridiculous accuracy, but both of them cannot exist with each other. So there's no theory of everything. But what that means is that because both of these things are the truest theories that humans know about, but yet both of them cannot exist with each other, we're looking for the grand unified theory of everything. But it could be called, you know, trying to define an object, trying to define a thing. None of this has any objective reality to it, including the neuron that creates your mind and creates your brain, which in turn creates your mind and consciousness. So because there is no definitive understanding of an object, and your brain being one of those objects, then knowledge itself is subjective, even within within the realm of mind. Like, let's assume that somebody is thinking. Even within those terms of logic, you cannot know definitively that there is actually a neuron creating a thought. So from that perspective, even from the perspective of separation, you are still assuming a lot. You're assuming many things, but the primary thing being the object of your brain, and therefore the subjective nature of knowledge. Subjective in that we assume that there is a brain thinking, but what I am suggesting, or what appears to be suggested here, is that if you look at it it might seem like a small thing. Well, it doesn't. You know, there is no definition for an object, but an object exists. There is no definition for a thought, but clearly a brain exists. But it's not so clear. If you look at it from the terms of inside out, let's say now through time and space, say from the beginning of man or the beginning of the universe to the end, to the beginning of man, or to the end of consciousness, whatever you want to say. In that allotted, there is something else other than the immediate experience. So there is time and space. There are objects moving in a dimension, though unproven, and it must be assumed, uh, because you're not the object of your brain and you can't define it. So the beginning of man and consciousness, from the very beginning of time, this seeker question is, what am I? What is self? Because there's no definition for it. So there's nothing you can corral and say, this is consciousness, or this is the self, or this is my identity. This is who I am relative to another object, because there is no objectively true object, including and starting with yourself. So as that goes through, that's not just you, that's every person who has ever lived or who will ever live, looking at it from that perspective, that even if separation is true, no one will ever know it objectively. No one ever. Now think about that. Now, if you want to talk about something that knows, just think about how that can't be. Excuse me 1 second, Arthur. That sounds like somebody's at the door, but it's the plumbing. I'm sorry. Yeah, don't worry about it. Thank you, ma'am. So it sounds as if there is, or it seems like, oh, well, that's just a small thing. What he's saying is, because you can't define it doesn't mean it's there, when obviously things are there. But no, that's not true at all. And everything that you learn about separation, the more you learn about it, the more you realize that it negates itself. That it not only is it not obvious that things exist in time and space, but that all physicists, that Einstein, all of them, Penrose, Hawking, just the thousands of brilliant people, all come to the understanding that there are no things in an objective sense. We can only assume them from X position or Y position, what have you, but you will never know it to be true. So in an objective sense, any story beyond what appears in this moment is just a fairy tale. It's just a story, even everything I just said. But it's not an opinion. It's the fact, it's the nature of reality as it appears here and now. It's not like a concept. It's not subjective, because what it is saying that there is no brain, there is no thought. Thought itself is the illusion, that there is somebody thinking, or that you could drop thought or think harder or meditate or do some kind of mechanism, like pointing, Richard Lance's thing. All of that is essentially a story. I mean, it's absolutely unverifiable. And the only thing that is true is that there's a couple of guys that are appearing to have a conversation about this very paradoxical happening, not happening. But we ourselves are that appearance. We're not objectively real in that we are in fact objects in time and space. So no matter what, no matter how you want to approach it, ultimately, the idea that you're even thinking or aware or experiencing something is completely illusory. I mean, it's an assumption, and it becomes, some people say, well, you're just, you're just tying yourself into a pretzel, or you're thinking too much. No, I'm telling you, there is no thought. Okay, there is no thought in objectives in any sense, because I mean, what is a brain? What is it transmitting? What is the nervous system? Okay, and who is it transmitting it to? What is the mind saying to who? And that is the self, and that's the undefinable. And if you can't even know the source of your own thought, what is the chance that this immediate experience has anything to do with what you think is real? You can't even know that
Yeah.
you're thinking.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you see what I'm saying? So the
Yeah.
beautiful aspect of it, the most amazing and just counterintuitive nature of this is that eventually it kind of becomes very natural.
Yeah,
And
no,
that,
I like that. That's good. Yeah, that's good. I mean,
yeah, it's very
there's no
natural.
other. You're just boxed in, really. I mean, you know,
I
yeah,
love it, man. I
yeah,
love this.
yeah.
And,
But I mean, when you were saying about practices and meditation, I used to do that whole "Who am I?" You know, try to inquire and find this apparent me or whatever it was supposed to be. That sense of me. What is it? Where does it come from? What's the source? And I mean, it's exactly ties in with what you're saying. In the end, I got to the position where instead of asking, I would ask, "Who am I?" but not even try to inquire.
right.
Just as soon as I would say, "Who am I?" don't bother to look. Um, so I mean, there must be millions of meditations you could do. Just, but it all seems what's just happening. I mean,
Yeah.
no, I really like when this video is finished. I will listen again to what you said because I mean there was a lot of stuff there, but no, that's brilliant. I really like that.
I'm really glad you're here, Arthur. And I'll definitely, as soon as it comes out, and Andrew, actually, like I said, he's actually putting things on his page now, or his YouTube page. He's learning how to do it. So tonight or tomorrow, I will actually be able to put this stuff out on my own page as well
Oh,
as, So I will put this, or I will give this to you on Messenger, and if you like, I'll wait until you give me the okay to put
no,
it on my page.
you do what you like, Howard. It's
Oh,
fine.
thank
I'm not
you.
bothered.
Thank you.
But it's funny how this happened because
Yeah.
if Kakila hadn't left, I wouldn't have spoke.
Yeah.
If other people would have turned up, I still wouldn't have spoke. So yeah, well, I don't know what to make of that. Uh,
I love it. I
yeah,
love it. And that's really the purpose. Um, again, paradoxically speaking, but we're here having a meeting, and I set this up, and behind in that concept is was the fact that people aren't coming all at once, so why not have a longer meeting so that people can come one at a time if
yeah,
that's what happens, and just to be available longer, and that way things like this could transpire,
yeah,
and that's kind of what that whole thing is about, the reason why the meeting is so long. So that is why so this very thing is the reason why the meeting is the way it is.
yeah.
I'm so grateful to you, man.
Oh no, I love you, Arthur. I love everything, Howard. Everything you're doing is, but it again that unknowing that
Yeah.
I had no idea that I would speak. Um, that's what's fascinating as well. You don't know from moment to moment.
No,
You really don't.
no,
Yeah. So
no.
that kind of if you're talking about pointers or hints or glimpses or whatever, that you could view it that way.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And it's true.
yeah.
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 Yeah,
Well,
you have.
I mean, I can't think of. I mean, sometimes you write stuff on the Facebook. It kind of it just stops you momentarily. You just. I try to think of something to reply, but you just can't. It just all just stops. Yeah, you're a really good writer, Howard. Honestly, I love your stuff. I really do.
I really am grateful for that, for saying that, because I don't. Do you have another minute?
Yeah, you too. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm.
Well, what I was thinking about was sometimes I think I come off a little cold or something, or like I come off as like I know something, or I don't know, maybe repetitive. There's a lot of things that like I look at some of my stuff and I think, maybe I should try to soften this up a little bit. and over the, I wrote some things over the past couple of days that were a little softer, a little more about like poetry and just having fun with words in that way. You know what I mean? Just instead of like having to make my point as being something that is real or true, just alluding to, the different the beauty of not knowing, and I don't know. So it's one of those things where I guess it's a writer, or, I hate to even say that I'm a writer, but it's one of those things that writers go through when they're putting stuff out. I mean, is this even, I'll look at it and I'll go, what should I, shouldn't I, so when somebody gives me a compliment like that, I really do take it to the heart. And I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart, because, I never know, honestly. And sometimes, it just, they fall flat on their face, and that's fine. And then other times I'll make a post and it just on like a whim, like there is no path. The little old lady,
yeah.
there is no path. And that's got more hits than I think anything I've ever done, except for an elephant. I posted this thing, an elephant drinking some water. It's almost like at 1,000 right now. That definitely is the best thing. I mean, the post that I got the most out of, as far as likes or whatever. But then I think the second one would be the little old lady and there is no
I
path.
love that one. Yeah.
That's like an almost 200 now. So for all of the explain, like you were saying, the more you talk, sometimes the less sense you make. Sometimes it just has to, as far as relating to people and being personable, it could be something just as easy as, a little old lady, there is no path, and bam, everybody says, oh, I can relate to that,
Yeah. No, Howard, I mean, I'm not just saying it. So far, what I've seen of your writing, it's different all the time. So, and it's going to hit different people in different ways. So you never know what you're writing, the impact it's going to have on anyone. So, and I also like when, the little old lady, there is no path. When you read through the comments, there's so many different perspectives.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. So everybody took it a different way.
Yeah.
I took it to be a bit sarcastic with it, that there is a path,
Right.
And everyone's different. But it was a fun post. I like that.
Yeah, I take it as if literally there is no path, because there is no place of origin and no destination. I mean, we are here now, the totality of existence. And so everything that, we've discussed and all of the things that seem to be happening are just the appearance of that happening. And so you, as Alan Watts would say, you're already there, in that there is no you and there is no there. It's just this. And, and that's the beauty of it. And that's why there's no law, no knowledge, and no need of a story. It is the negation of storytelling. In a weird way, you can go completely inside out with it, and all of these words and all of this writing and all of the things that we put into our memories and consciousness and dump into this experience, which is infinite, in that it is unexplainable, because there's no point in which to begin this story. There's no place to say, okay, we're going to say this is real. Okay, and from this reality, like in science, we will base all our tests. But in this situation, there is no place to say the self exists, not in an objective sense. There's no definition of consciousness or self or any of that, because there's no object in which to say it is derived. It's not the brain. It's not the nervous system. It's not the senses, which is everything to be reality. It's not the consciousness, because there's no objective truth to that story. And so there's nowhere to say this is where the self begins and all things are relative to it. So it's actually the lack of a story. It's the lack of it being able to say, anything in regards to what appears to be existence. And in that way, you know, I see it as unique in that way. It's the lack of a story, a lack of a belief, a lack of a learning or a knowledge. It's literally, you know, realizing the nature of reality as it appears.
Well, that was basically what helped me a lot was the content of thought isn't real. That's what that's kind of, I found that really helpful, you know, because, and that gave me a sense of this whole thing, if you like, that unreality of the content of a thought. Can't seem to go any further than that. If you wanted to try and say it to someone, I can't anyway.
Well, that's the beauty of it. Like when people, you know, when they're stressed, or they're, you know, when you know, some people want to meditate or whatever method they want to use in order to, you know, calm down, or you know, the thought is getting in your way or any of that stuff. You can always revert to this basic fact of consciousness, basic fact of nature as it appears. There is no body thinking. There is no thought. So there is no self that is controlling a mechanism that makes any of this true. You know what I mean? So because you can't define yourself, you can't define consciousness, you can't know the source of your thought or your feelings or any of that stuff. You know, your identity is completely gone. So when anything gets confusing, you just realize, you know, just remember that you're not thinking. It's not you doing something. It's and the funniest thing about it is, the most paradoxical thing about that is, you know, that there's nobody doing it. You know, there is no knowing, unless you want to say, and I think we're going back to your original question, unless you want to tell a story about knowledge, because you can't know that knowing is happening from any relative point, because there is no relative point. There is no self that knows something that can say, I know that there's a knowing. There's a God that knows, and this all-knowing God is the big self, and this is just the little self being played like so many puppets. It can't, you know, that's a story. And you know, and yes, you can say that if you like, and sure, you can believe it. It doesn't matter, you know. Ultimately, it's just a fairy tale, because none of, you know, this truly is the totality, and from that perspective, everything is a story, and it's amazing. I think, actually,
Well,
I love it.
no, I agree. If I was talking to a friend, I could never say, because I don't talk about these things outside of this. I could never say to someone, "You don't think your thoughts." They wouldn't know what I meant.
Right.
But I do find it helpful, the whole story analogy, because if someone was distressed, and I said, "Yeah, but it's a story you're telling yourself. You know, how much of it do you want to believe?" Then it works. It seems to be a different level
Yeah.
of what we're talking about. So it's useful everywhere, really. It's applicable, the story.
It's you could help people. I mean, yeah, I mean, and when people say, you know, well, there are no things, who are you helping? You know, and it's like, well, it's just the experience, the immediate experience. It's like when somebody needs help and I can help them and I help them, I feel good. Now, is that real? No. But is it beautiful? Yes.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, does it matter that it is or is not actual? No. I mean, when somebody helps me, am I happy? Yes, thank you. You know, and when I help somebody, do I feel good? Sure do. You know, so it doesn't matter that it's not actual. No. The more beautiful thing, the most beautiful thing to me is that it's not actual. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't. It's not that you're doing it for a reason. It's just being done because it's beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, and there's no reward. There's no, you know, there's no explanation. There's no reason. You know, there's no reason to care, but I care, you know, and does it matter? No. But is it beautiful to me? Sure it is. You know, I mean, and that's just the kind of people I like being around. You know, that we all know, you know, nobody has to think alike, but you don't have to, you know, you don't have to know why something is happening in order to, you know, just be a kind person. You know, you don't, and I'm not asking anybody to do anything. I'm just saying being kind, you know, and people that are kind, just simply kind, are the kind of people that I like to hang around with, you know,
Yeah.
and that's just the
Yeah.
way it is, you know. It's just and I think because we know that it really has no basis for a meaning or a purpose or a reason, and there is no benefit or there's no, you know, there's nothing that you're going to gain from it, is the reason why it's even that much more beautiful.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I mean, earlier you said you don't know if some of your writing comes across as cold. I don't find that at all, and I don't think anybody else does either. Because,
Really.
yeah, no, honestly, from whoever I've spoken to, the main thing everybody says about Howard is, you know, how warm, kind, you know, appreciative you are. So definitely, I wouldn't go down that road of the
Well,
cold.
that's good to know, because sometimes I feel like I'm being too clinical. You know what I mean? You know what
No,
I'm saying?
not at all. I think no. I think you could tell underneath it all, as if it shines through. Something's coming through. You know, the
Yeah.
care is there. So
You know, it's one of those things where, you know, I mean, look, yeah, this is a little, what I'm about to say is a little bit of a story, but it's for me, it's like you know, people say, you know, there's no enlightenment, you know, but really it goes deeper than that. Because yeah, there's no enlightenment, there's no person being enlightened. That's true, right? But your environment gets enlightened when you lose yourself. When you lose the object subject nature of transactional relationships, where I need to get something from you in order to make this worth my while. You lose that, you know, because you're not really thinking in that way. You know, everybody does, and I'm not saying, you know, I'm just, work with me here a little bit, but it's this thing where it's not you doing something, okay, and helping someone. No, it's the entire environment. You lose yourself and everything becomes brighter. Everything is enlightened. And just like there is nothing and everything simultaneously, that is the story of enlightenment to me. And that there is no one being enlightened, yes, but enlightenment occurs absent the self. And that's
yeah,
the most amazing part.
yeah. No,
You know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's just the way I see it.
Well,
Paradoxically, of course.
well, yeah. It does appear that way. That um, someone who's talking about enlightenment, it does seem the whole situation around that person seems to be lighter, um, kinder, brighter. So, so obviously that's just the appearance like that, but that's nevertheless that seems to be what's happening. You know, that's the experience for that person and the people around. So that's what's showing up. You know, and I do think people do feel it. Yeah, again, we're back to the people thing, but I think you can only speak like that. You can't. What else can you do?
Well, see, we know, or we're discussing the fact that there are no, you know, that there is no separation. So there's no separation between the two of us. We are the story of what is occurring. So, you know, to talk about people as if they are enlightened or not enlightened, it's just doesn't work that way. But then again, some people seem more enlightened than others, you know, in that kind of situation. So, you know, really, like you said, yeah, I agree with that. You know, there's just no way to express it. Um, you know, the weirdest thing is that, you know, the darkness of you know, negativity, or, you know, the fear of pain, all those kind of things still are around. I mean, they still, you know, nobody wants to be in pain, nobody wants to suffer. You know, even in the appearancy, I mean, you can chop me up into bits and I still know, or appear to know on the level of mind, what is happening, and on that same level I will be in pain. Will it make any difference to anything ever? Never. No. um you know, but do I want that demise? No. And that is part of
Yeah.
the story, and how people will say, or like some gurus throughout time have said, you know, the difference between us is I don't care what happens. But in reality, there is nothing happening. Yeah, you know, there's, you know, nothing happening appearing as it happened. So yeah, I mean, but those people that I'm quoting, I mean, so many people have said it over the years, that it is beautiful, and I understand it, you know, that I don't care what's about to happen, or I don't care about this or that. And death is welcome, you know, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't really matter. um but the reality is that there is no one here to make that call. There's no one here thinking in that term. But there's no way to say it, like you said. There's no way to talk about these things.
No,
You
no,
know?
no. But as you said about the uh, appearance, there could be, say, a supposed enlightened person who's saying he doesn't care or she doesn't
Right.
care, but that's just what, from what we're talking about, that would be just the apparency, as you're saying. So again, it doesn't matter, does it? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah. From that aspect, once you get to that level of everything is apparent, it doesn't even have to be known. You know, it's not even relevant. It doesn't even matter whether somebody gets to this understanding or not. I mean, you realize that everything is apparent, and that's why, you know, people like Hindus and stuff say everything is God. You know, you know, everybody's got the, you know, the different thing, and everybody's bowing to each other, and everybody's speaking to each other as God, because in the end, it's all just an apparency. It's all just a dream. So, but from no dreamer, and that's the beauty of it. It just happens, and or appears to happen from no cause or effect or source or destination. You can make up stories about source and destination and a path in which to walk in order to get here now. But then you get there now and realize that it's not here now, and there's no thing to get. And you know, the whole thing turns into that movie, or that play, or that screen. And everybody that comes into your position is like, or into your immediate experience, is just you, you know, essentially, if you want to say it that way, or is God, or is, you know, that kind of. And all of a sudden you're nice to each other. Why? Because everybody knows that this is just a dream. It's just an apparency, and for no reason other than itself do we, you know, do we do kind things for each other, say kind things to each other, be kind to each other. It's like a whole nother, you know, level of, you know, enjoying the dream. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Enjoying the dream for the beautiful thing that it is. Always knowing that, you know, it's unconditional and can turn and become not so nice, which is what makes nice. You know, is that there's always that fear of, or that undertow that like things can fall apart at any time, and it doesn't matter. Your individual suffering, um, or pain or situation or whatever it is, has no relevance on that appearance. So once you get to that appearance, once you realize it for what it is, then you can recognize more, like, wow, things are not going well for me right now, and I'm in a lot of pain, or there's a lot of things that are happening that just aren't making sense, or whatever, pain, suffering, all of this stuff. you know um for whatever reason. And the thing is that you can see it as the appearance and get angry about it, or scream out in pain, or be involved in whatever way you want, while all the while knowing this is just a story. This is not real. It has nothing to do with me or it or any of that. It has to do with just, this is what is. And from that aspect, from that that unconditional love kind of rhetoric, this beauty, and appreciation for things like this, in my case of this, the conversation, I am grateful for this, because it can change on a dime. And some people might call a conversation like this mundane. It doesn't really matter, and maybe it is, but given what could be, the far recesses of the mind, and all the horrors and the terrible things that could be happening at this moment, and all the different sufferings and things that, all the fears people have, given that context, this is truly something to be grateful for. And there's no way, from that point forward, listening to people talk about their, different ways they want to talk about it is, part of it. You listen to them and you think it's beautiful, or you don't, or sometimes you get caught up in an argument like, no, that's not right, because da 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 da. And you can go on about it forever and never changing all of it. It's all just part of this beautiful, just amazing, weird, happening, not happening. I wish I could say it something else another way, but yeah, it is,
Well,
it's beautiful.
see, that's the thing. I mean, if you talk to an average person on the street who doesn't know about this stuff or hasn't come across it, to say that everything's perfect, all is well, they're going to say, yeah, but what about poverty, starvation, cruelty, and wars, and everything?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm sure you have, but I mean, I've read stories where people who have been in them situations have found some sort of peace. They get into a despair and think, this is it, this is the end, I'm helpless, there's nothing I can do. They seem to collapse into something, or open into something else, and the situation doesn't seem as it seems, if that makes sense.
Well, this would be a great point to ask you. Do you want to talk about your shift?
No, see, the thing is, I could never say there's ever been a time that I can't pinpoint any time. It always feels, to be honest, I think everybody sees like this, but for some reason, it's almost as if you're fooling yourself that you're not. I mean, it seems kind of obvious that everything is like this.
Right.
There must be moments for everyone who not, we say there's no knowing, but who knows this somehow.
Somehow.
Because you get lost in the story. You become, you are this person who's got to do this, who's got to do that. But there always seems to be somewhere in the background, that's not strictly true.
Right.
And I think everybody's like that. Otherwise, how could you even tolerate some of the things that happen in the world? I mean, even to yourself, when you're in pain, when you're suffering, if you truly believed it was just this, how would you cope? There must be something somewhere. I know we said that there's no knowing, but again, that paradox, I don't know. Well,
so you're saying there must be something?
Not a thing, but the stories. The words.
It's where language. It's where language breaks down completely.
There's not. I don't think there's a thing that knows, but it's just lost. There's no thing, but this appearance comes as if with a knowing. It's always as if. I could never insert any other words really. But as for shifts, no, I wouldn't say there was ever a moment. It feels like it's always been like this, but more and more sort of seeing the obviousness of it. And I know there's a lot of people that say, no, you can't have it in increments or stages. It has to be either or not. But
Right.
I'm not, I don't think so. I mean, in the story, it could appear as increments.
Yes.
And doesn't have to be a big shift or a big moment. For me, anyway, it seems to be a knowing in the beginning that gradually became known, even though that doesn't make any sense at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now when you say knowing, are you saying that like there's a presence of a knowing, like
No,
like a
no.
feeling? Is there a knowing from something beyond yourself?
No, I don't.
Okay.
It doesn't feel like there's anything behind this.
Okay.
You know, no source, nothing in control of it.
Right.
Just
That from that perspective, for me, that is the veil of that is the most difficult thing for the mind to accept, that there is no mechanism for what appears to be this happening, and what appears to be knowledge, or there's everything has a cycle, everything has a mechanism. But that's just me though. And I can't even say completely that I don't believe that myself, that there's some kind of knowing, but that is my mind, that has no, objective awareness of its own. It has no, like, we can get into, more physical examples, or we can get into metaphysical examples, about that. But then there's always that core, like this here now contains words like God, but contain words also like there's this ebbing that's always there, something that's always there, and some a knowing or a presence, or like some people say that something must be on in order for somebody to negate it. Okay, there must be an on. And and this is where things get really difficult to talk about, because there is no example of off. Okay, there's no example of no mechanism, there's no example of no thing. All right, so what appears to be the totality, okay, is an appearance of cycles. There's different seasons, there's different events, there's dark and light and sun and moon and blah blah blah, right? So um, everything seems to be moving in time and space, including one's thoughts and minds. Um, Everything is a mechanism of will and choice. Um, so the hardest thing to deal with, and it's impossible on the level of mind, and I know that sounds preposterous to say something like the level of mind, is as if there was not mind. And depending on how you want to look at it, we could have a discussion about that forever. But the reality is that there's always something beyond what appears to be just this. And in that regard, um, you can bring to bear everything you know about a mechanism, and about thinking, and about knowledge and understanding and awareness and experience, and all of those things require, even the words that are coming out of my mouth require a mechanism, require a method, require an understanding and a knowing, a knowledge. But what is this totality, or what's being expressed as this totality, it has none of that. It is the room containing knowledge. It contains what appears to be a dimensional individual that thinks it is thinking within the occurrence of a mechanism named consciousness. And that identity of consciousness, subjective or objective, though not known in a specific way, is always present in that. The immediate experience involves that individual, and so there's that mechanism of subject object. And so no matter what you're doing, even when you speak to yourself, or think to yourself, you're thinking dualistically, and there must be a cause for the initial event in order for this to take place. But that's the story of space, an individual in space and time. That's the story of someone who knows something. The story of knowledge itself is dualistic in that you are not the object that you know about. Okay, so you can't know it objectively. So what you're saying is there is something that knows and something that can be known, and in that way, um, all words, all labels, all titles, are completely useless because a label is duplicitous. Um, and so what appears is this story of knowledge and this ebbing and this feeling that constantly requires, you know, how does that work? Or, what is that feeling? Or when all of that is the feeling or is how it works, it's not even working. Like energy itself doesn't exist, as they say in physics, because energy is the experience of one thing doing work on another thing, things not being explained except through energy. So energy equals energy. This in itself is not a subject transferring knowledge to another object, creating what appears to be, a knowing about something. Okay, all of that is illusory from that position. The existence or the energy itself is an illusion about existence as far as a dimension and a happening. So it's beyond even that. And once you get there, and where there is no there's no you and there's no there's just this appearance of everything as nothing, as looking like everything, and back again. All of it is just acausal, as a friend of mine would call it, acausal, in that there's no mechanism making it happen. And so that's the most difficult aspect of what I'm alluding to, or what I appear to be alluding to, or what is being alluded to here, is that there literally are no controls. There's nobody doing something. And in that way, this is unconditional. And that love is unconditional, in that, like, you don't choose who you love. Nobody ever can choose who they love, unfortunately. I mean, you love who you love. I mean, regardless what anybody says, anybody does, on that level of emotion, you cannot not love somebody that you love. And there's no reason for loving that person. There's a lot of times when people say, why, why would you love that? It's always the person that you don't even, that there is no reason to love them. It's like, but nobody can see it, but you just do. It's just your heart. That is just the way it is. And it's unconditional. It has nothing to do with reason or sense or logic or purpose or meaning. It has nothing to do with helping you or anything. It just is what it is. And that is what this is. This is unconditional love, only not from me to you, but as this. It has, and so there is no explanation for it, but there's no stopping it either. And much like unconditional love, it can get ugly. and that's just the way it is. You can't stop it. It's just
that's beautiful, Howard. Beautiful. Yeah, I like that. But it's it just comes, but it always comes down to, is there something here or not? Because when you're talking about a presence that knows, and when you say it the way you say it, not as such, no, there's just, as you say, this. But there is something comforting sometimes for people to say, but there is something here, we call it God or whatever, expressing as this, being this. It's almost like a way out still,
right.
You don't want to go all the way.
Yeah. That's the truth. That's so true. In that, there's always that, you don't want to tell people that you know, you don't want to say these things that are, you know, difficult for some to hear, you know, but the reality of it is, though, in the in the paradoxical letting go, because there's nobody letting go or holding on to anything. There's nothing to let go or hold on, and no one to do that. So but the most beautiful aspect of it is that that paradoxical understanding between people as well. I mean, for me personally, to get somebody to understand that they're not actually doing any of this, and it's just the appearance of it doing, is that, and that, you know, that you can help them understand that, you know, or you could see it and when they get it. And when that happens, you know, there could be a recoiling at times. You know, it's like at first it's like, you know, they can't, you know, it's like, oh my God, you know, and then the next thing you know, they're like, wait a minute, you know, what is, wait, you know, and it's like, and that is this. And it is the paradoxical letting go and getting, you know, getting everything and nothing, letting
Well,
go of things as they, you know, as they appear.
Well,
And
what would you say about nothing? You know, when people say emptiness and nothing. So when you're talking, if you was going to tell somebody you're not doing anything, there's no one there, how would you fit in the nothing or emptiness to that?
well, the immediate experience is not relative to any position. So this
Right.
here now, being relative to no position, is not a thing in itself. It's like, um, you know, much like the Big Bang Theory or anything like that. When somebody wants to say, you know, when time and space began, it began from not even nothing, because it wasn't even a dimension. Time and space began with the Big Bang. So that expansion started from not even nothing, and it expands into not even nothing, right? It's not a dimension. So here is something that has cause and effect and motion and matter and time and space, and it's expanding and all of that, but it comes from not even nothing and goes to not even nothing. The ultimate, you know, prank essentially is that it's saying the same thing. I'm only saying that nothing beyond this immediate experience exists. This is the Big Bang happening.
Right.
And so there is no dimension that it comes from, and it goes to no place. So this is, you know, the appearance of a happening or the appearance of something, but it doesn't exist as it appears. To say, and but to say that it's not a cycle. So it's literally happening and not happening simultaneously. So it doesn't turn on and turn off, or it doesn't begin and then end. It literally is beginning and ending at all times. It is literally not a dimension. It's not a cyclical series of events. And in that way, it's nothing. It's
Right.
absolutely not even nothing. And so the only way to make it into something is to tell a story, is to believe a story, is to tell or believe or, you know, get involved in a story that cannot be known, um, for various reasons, you know, for all the reasons we've been talking about. So
And that believing in the story or not believing in the story is still the story or the appearance.
it's still the story in the appearance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
there's no way to get around that. So yeah, so in that way, it is, you know, if from that, in that regard, or from that respect, um, you know, I personally, um, know I'm not doing anything, but, you know, I don't know really anything, and I know that I like, you know, people to care about each other and people to be nice to each other around me. You know, I like my environment to be kind. Um, but that's not really me saying that, it's not really me doing that, and so, maybe in its own way that is, I mean, that is what is, and you just don't, there's nothing about it that is good or bad, or, there's, everything that appears has, is absolutely nothing to do with a reason or a purpose or a cause or a meaning. And so anytime, you know, any of those things come up, meaning, for example, meaning would be duplicitous as well. There would have to be something, there would have to be two objects that, for meaning to occur. So it's just the appearance of meaning, and any kind of and I mean, we can go into that as deep as you like as well, but it's still ultimately that simple. There are no two objects, and therefore meaning is the story of objects moving through time and space.
Well, isn't that what's so, we use the word beautiful, I mean, but you could, it's almost if you could feel it, that there are no people talking to each other. It sounds sad in one respect, there's sort of a sadness or a loneliness to that. But if you look into it deeper, that's when I think for me the beauty appears, that how amazing that there's all this apparently happening, but actually happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I find amazing.
Yeah, it absolutely loses the word itself, appearance. The word itself, appearance, loses its meaning.
Yeah.
So I mean, in that respect, it comes back around again, and we go again.
Yeah.
And that's how that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And you can go, as we've kind of brushed upon here, go beyond what words can say, but at the same time, that you can't get beyond this story. So, but then there are certain things the story can only allude to. It's beautiful in that respect, and there's no way to, for anybody to say one thing does or does not exist in that respect. I cannot say that. I mean, once everything is nothing, or there is no separation, or there are no points in time and space, there is, everything is nothing, and nothing is everything. So everything within that is as real or unreal as the belief appears, and all of it is just happening, not happening, and that is both real and unreal. It's amazing.
Well, if some, we're talking about glimpses or shifts or enlightenment. If a person is seeing from there, we call it a person seeing from there. But even if you could get this so-called just a mental construct, I think you could still see the beauty in it there. Your mind couldn't really go any further. It's as far as you could. If you were just thinking this, if you was an actual human being thinking this, I don't see how a human being could think beyond what we're calling non-duality. I don't see how, where could the human brain go? I mean, that seems to be as far as we can take it. So whether it's a so-called glimpses and you're experiencing it like that, or it's all fault, it's still beautiful both ways. You could still appreciate it, just hearing it.
Yeah, it really truly is, unexpressible, and yet at the same time that it's the only thing that really appears to be happening. When it, to speak in terms of dualism, as far as being real or unreal, it's the same unknowability. It's the same unknowability.
Yeah,
It's the same.
yeah.
It's the same. Take from a different point of view. So it's just, you will still end up with the unknowable. You will still end up not knowing anything, and but that's again, where do you go from there? How do you figure out a thing. And you know, as I think it was the Dalai Lama who said to I can't remember which scientist it was, um, but it may have been Stephen Carroll for all I know. But he said, you know, when science comes up with an explanation, we'll be glad to listen. But you know, until that time, you know, you guys keep digging deeper and deeper and deeper, and you're finding nothing. You're finding stories. You know, you literally can only go so far within the scale of reference in which you want to say something is real. Like, you know, something, you know, a pin drops from your hand to the table, and you can describe that reality of the pin dropping from the hand to the table. You can describe why that appears to be, but you cannot. You can do it within your scale and say that this, you know, does appear to be happening within people in a shared reality, but you can't verify that. And even once you make that assumption, it only takes you so far, because it has to do with velocity and motion. It has to do with motion, velocity, trajectory. It has to do with size and you know, all kinds of things. You know, gravity. Everything in physics comes to play, and from that respect, you know, there are no answers either. You know, there's nothing in science that's going to get you to any objective truth. They're going to get you to, this is how things appear to be moving when they're very small or when they're very big. This is what appears to be happening, but those two things cannot, they're in direct opposition of each other, being the quantum and the macro, and cannot seem to exist together. Yet that is what we see as objects and time and space. So, you know, once you you know, you go in that direction, the materialism and testability, it's never going to be absolute. And even if it is, it's only absolute within the scale of reference you are referring to as a reality. It isn't like it appears as if I'm dropping a pin. Well, that pin's only going to drop that way within your scale of reference, within your scale of existence. You know, being the size of, you know, a cluster of galaxies obviously won't experience that the same way. You know what I mean? But there's nothing saying that there is something, you know, a billionth of the time, or a trillionth the size of what we consider quarks now, which are the smallest particles there are, which they really don't have any mass, and they don't move. They're not real like particles as we would consider things, but there can be something a trillionth of that size. And there is nothing saying that object or that appearance could not work as the same as an object the size of a cluster of galaxies from our scale of reference. There's nothing saying that we are the normal size, and that's why everything is the way it is, normal as a planet or a sun or a galaxy. No, what we're seeing as planets, suns, and galaxies is because of our perspective, because of our size and velocity. And so something the size of a cluster of galaxies would not see it the same way. And just like we don't see microscopic creatures living in the same way, they don't have time and space the same way we do. So all of that is still predicated on the illusion, and this is in a physical sense, the illusion of scale, the illusion that there is a finite boundary in which to say something is or is not real, or is not a definitive size. We can only compare objects to what appear to be other objects without ever defining them. And so size in itself is relative to a subjective idea about time and space and objects. It does not have any objective reality attached to it. It just appears to, even in separation. And that's amazing. You know, it just So
it's that thing again with the microscope. You know, you could look at something underneath it, but which level's the true level? Which, you know, that the whole word "true" just goes out the window. I mean,
well, like Penrose says with the scaleless model, instead of a Big Bang, he just says that everything appears to come from an infinitely dense hot point and expand exponentially faster in every direction because of where we are in relative to its position. So in 100 trillion years, there's another position looking at us right now as an infinitely dense hot point expanding in every direction, because from their perspective, that's what it looks like. So, and from the Big Bang, from that infinitely hot dense point, there's another infinitely hot dense point. And what happens is that there is no beginning or end. It just appears as if there's a beginning. So infinitely small and infinitely large are relative to no position yet again. There is no basis in which to say that, you know, the Big Bang occurred or just appeared to occur, or however you want to say, prior to physics, you know, not even nothing. So in this respect, you can excuse me a second. So in this respect, what appears to be happening is nothing nothing of an absolute insofar as what it appears to mean to us as separate individuals enjoying this you know, scale of time and space, as minute as it is, even given the scale that we can see. So, you know, all of these things point to just this infinite unknowability, even if you want to use, you know, the mind and a mechanism to talk about evolution, like a culmination of a physical brain that exists in time and space that is aware of other things. That has, you know, you can take that back to, you know, as far as you like to go, and you will get to a lack of a mechanism, just like in the Big Bang. Suddenly a mechanism appeared, but what happened before that mechanism is impossible to understand. So what we have is the appearance of an effect from no source. So we have the appearance of something happening coming from no particular vantage point or a particular, or, you know, we have the appearance of work being done on mechanisms without the actual mechanism. So there is no source for any of this to be considered objectively true, no matter how you look at it. So from that respect, you know, the beauty of it is when I do see or talk to people from the science community, and we get into it, you know, a lot of times they don't want to talk to me because they don't want to, they just want to talk about what can be verified. And when I say, well, what cannot be verified is that this is happening, and then I explain to them why, and they don't, I mean, then initially the funniest thing is to hear a scientist say, well, what appears to be happening, and then we can go from there. But it'll still you'll still never get an answer.
well, I think listening to that, you've sort of brought us right back to where I started, really, which was with that whole thing when I was a child, seeing as a consciousness as if a pinpoint, and then expand into the whole room. But I remember that thinking there didn't seem to be something that was, I mean, I know I called it consciousness now, but then I wouldn't have had that word. It just seemed to be that vantage point and then this vantage point, but they wouldn't have been called vantage points. I mean, only now I say that, but at the time, it definitely, using the language I have now, it definitely felt as if there wasn't anything called consciousness that was shrinking or expanding. Yeah, just a happening. But Yeah.
Well, you know, like even Kafka and the bug story. You know, you don't realize until halfway through the book that Kafka is a bug. You know what I mean? It's the same basic premise in that, you know, there's nothing like, there's no way to tell what big and small is. And so there's no way to say what is the, you know, all we have is this reference of immediate experience to say, here's a point and there's the totality. And that's how totality could be whatever, you know, well, you think, you know, it's trillions of light years across as a universe, or just this infinitely teensy little point relative to you within one of the atoms or particles of your experience. All of that negates itself insofar as scale, and because it negates itself in so far as scale, it negates itself insofar as time and space as well. And so it, you know, yes, you could be infinitely small or infinitely big, and making yourself like looking at yourself from another point, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I think I might have branched off a little bit here, but I'm not talking exactly about what you're talking about, am I?
No, I think you are actually. I think you're actually making it clearer what I was thinking, you know, or the experience is. You're putting it into some sort of context now where I didn't have that before. So no, that's good what you're saying.
Well, that you know, and that's simply the reality of the situation. It's not that reality is the way it is because, you know, and we are here now observing it. It's not that at all. Reality is the way it is because from the position of scale, because we appear to be this size, so everything is relative to our size, but in reality there is no actual size. And if you were simply just you know, a trillionth the size of a cork, your universe would be completely different, but no less valid or invalid to you as an individual. It might be, you know, everything runs backwards, or you don't know. But and the same with macro, with, you know, in the instance of a cluster of galaxies, you know, looking at us in the same way, it's not going to see time the same way, or space, or individuals. Everything would be different. So what appears to be real to us as separate creatures is relative to the scale in which we find ourselves. But there's no place to say what is small and what is large. So there's no place to say, you know, what is time or what is space and what is an individual within it. This just appears to be as it is from that perspective, assuming that you know, assuming many things that we've already discussed, but the assumption that there is actually a happening in the first place, which cannot be known unless that point is assumed in the first place.
Well, how strange after, you know, over 50 years to have that experience, and here I am today talking to you, you know, sort of clarifying that, you know, it's so strange. It really is a weird, the whole thing is odd. But like you said, beautiful.
It's so amazing. I love it so much. And the coolest thing is that nothing, you know, that this is actually just happening in this moment, you know.
Yeah.
And that's just, you know, thank you so much for
No,
that.
thank you, Howard. No, that's been really good. I'm glad in the end that I actually spoke.
I am too. I'm very good. Thank you so much, man. You're amazing. I mean, this has been a great conversation.
No, I've enjoyed it, Howard. Thank you very much. But I'm going to go now. I've seen somebody else has come on. I'm gonna go. But I'll look forward to seeing the video, see how it turned out.
Absolutely, yes.
Because there was a lot of stuff you said earlier that I want to go over, you know, myself.
Absolutely. As soon as I get it, I'll send it to you, and I'll probably be publishing it within the next couple of days.
Right, brilliant. Okay, Howard. Thank you very
Thank you,
much for
Arthur.
that. And I'll see you over at Facebook.
Yes, sir. Thanks again. I
Bye,
appreciate
Howard.
it. Bye. Sarah, hey, how you doing?
Okay, okay. So I'm being recorded. So the video,
Yes,
as in,
yes, ma'am.
yeah. So
Yes.
are we gonna have access to the recording?
Yes.
We will.
I'll send it to you as soon as it's done.
Ah, okay.
It was Zoom sends it to me. I'll send it to you. And my tech guy Andrew is saying that he's figuring out how to do all this stuff, so it should be published on my page, which is called Bedside Manner with Howard Chance on YouTube, and then Sourcelessness on my webpage. But I would send it to you first.
Oh, cool. Okay. Wow. Very good. So do you have recordings of the other meetings too?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Almost everything. Almost everything.
And are you
But
gonna post those as well on your website?
yes, yes.
Okay.
There's
Yeah.
going to be a lot of editing involved with a lot of them. This one I might just run the way it went. There's going to be a lot of filler involved at first. It's going to take me a little while to get used to the details of how to do it
Yeah.
and just make like little pieces. But at first, just to get used to it, I'll just throw the whole meeting out there. But like
Yeah.
this, like for this, when I send you the recording, this is 3 hours and 38 minutes in. So so you could just fast forward it to 3 hours and 38 minutes to get your spot on it
To
where
get
you
my.
came in.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. You know, I'm just interested in what happened before I came. But yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's the beauty of it. Everybody could
Yeah.
see I was actually saved by Arthur and Kokila. Arthur doesn't usually speak, and I was honored today that he decided to. Kokila and I had a conversation. I was just sitting there in silence for a while, and then Kokila came in, and we had a discussion about a lot of different things, and you'll probably see it if you want to. And then Arthur decided to speak when she left. She said, "Well, and I was grateful for that." And then we've been talking for a couple of hours at least. So
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So and I'm really grateful for that, because like I said, I've never heard him speak before. So and then I was just watching a oh gosh,
Luciana?
man. Yeah, Mirrors with Luciana, and I saw you on
Which
there.
one? Oh, you
Yeah,
saw.
that was. Yeah, you were talking to one of the ladies. I can't remember her name. The lady. Oh, I can't. She's so beautiful, and I posted it actually, but I posted it before I knew that you got on there. I kept
Wait, are you
listening
sure
to
that
it.
was me? Because I don't think
Yeah,
that.
it was you. It was you. It was
But was
5
this
months.
a really
It
long
was
time ago?
5 months ago. Yeah, is when it was
Oh, okay, that's
published.
possible. Which meeting was it? Was it?
It's a lady from, I think, Bolivia, maybe. I'm not really sure where she's from.
Oh, are you
She
talking about
might.
Liberation Unleashed? The
Yes,
yeah. Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about. Oh, wow,
but
interesting.
but 11 o'clock rolled around, and I had to stop watching it, and I came here, but that's what I was watching before I started the
Oh, that was
meeting.
all the way at the beginning. I think that's when I just entered the scene. Like,
Oh,
well,
really?
not just when I entered, but yeah, because yeah, I don't know what I said, but it was probably one of the beginner questions when you're just
Oh,
hearing about this.
no, not at all. You were asking great questions. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I got to get a lot of things done here, but I thought I would just like, pop in for a few minutes and come back maybe later. Just because some stuff. Just to take care of some domestic things. But yeah. How's it go? So so you liked the conversation up until now?
Yeah, Kokila was great. Arthur was great, and yeah, those two conversations essentially covered the whole meeting. I mean, yeah, so it hasn't been a very busy one as far as a lot of people, but the two conversations that were generated were great. They were amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I heard him say that he had this kind of experience.
Can you give me just 1 second? Can you give me just 1 second?
Sure, sure.
Thank you. I've got a new helper, like a house lady,
Oh, no worries.
a nurse, and she she's great, and she's coming back tomorrow, and so I just wanted to make sure she was going to come back, because they don't take care of those girls too well, and you never know when they're going to come back or not. She's been hearing me talk like this for 3 hours now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. What did I want to say? Oh, can you post the links to your website on the Facebook group?
Yes, I will, as soon as I start. I only have the one where I did the thing with Emerson, and I saw that last. I actually watched it again last night, and I was like, I'm not so sure. I mean, it's funny.
Wait, what, you mean the video of you and
Emerson with nothing.
Nothing FM?
Yeah, Nothing FM and Emerson.
That was with you? That was the first interview you did, right?
Yeah, that was my first interview.
That was good. That's how I discovered you, Howard.
Thank you. So I will leave it up there for that reason, because like somebody else told me that last night. They're like, I was like, I don't know. Should I leave that up there in its entirety? I'm not sure. Should I bust it up? And this guy said, well, that's how I met you, man. What are you gonna do? Why are you? I was like, all right. But that was the first time I was ever on camera for this kind of thing, and so yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, you should get a tech guy, because I see it, like you have, so your website is up. You have two pages, you said?
Yes, I have. Well, I have a YouTube page that's called Bedside Manor with Howard Chance, and then a web page called sourcelessness.com. So and then I have the Facebook page and the group.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, for sure. You'll probably have to excuse me. I'll probably won't have to come back later.
Okay.
Till when does this run, though?
Yes. Well, how about this? If you wanted to come back later, what time is it now? Do you know?
So it's 2:30. Oh, for me, I don't know. This is
for me. It's 2:38.
2:38.
Well, I got no. I've got 22 minutes until the end of this meeting. But if so they go from 11 to 3, unless there's a lot of unless it's busy, or if we got into a conversation, it would go until the conversation ended. But they always stay open from 11 to 3. If you wanted to leave and come back, and we can do an independent meeting, that would be great, or something like we did the other day. Only I would ask humbly if we could record it.
Record it, yeah.
Yeah, because there's always the pieces in there that I wish I had on record if I did.
I know those were good conversations. It wasn't just one. I think we had a couple of, right? Like
right,
and 3 or 4 conversations.
I think so, yeah. And then the reality being there too is that I am just trying to build up content. So I've got plenty of space to put on the pages. So if it's all the same to you, I would just leave the recording on, and as I get better, of course, I'll snip all the boring parts out. But as initially, I would just like to have it out there so that people can see that something is happening on there.
Yeah. Oh, I love. So I see that Nancy came back to your to the Facebook page, and I love how you guys play off of each other's words. It's so funny.
Oh, it was immediate too. I didn't, I'm very pleased by that, and I'm because it's just been so long since I've been involved with very many other groups. Like I kind of went into my own like cubbyhole, or how should I say, my own little cocoon, and just did my, just did, I don't know, not really group and my page, because I just, there just seemed for a while there that everybody was just, wanting to tear each other down or tear me down for whatever reason. And then I got bitter and I thought, this is horrible. This is not what I want at all. And, I mean, I don't want to feel this way. Like I had to worry about being critiqued all the time. And and then also critiquing other people for simply being themselves. And I was just like, man, this is not working. So I have been in that little cocoon for so long, but now I seem to be, there seems to be something's happening as far as exposure or whatever, and there's I don't know, an expansion of the amount of people that are around, and then obviously there's been a couple of people that have been there since the beginning, but then there are people like Nancy who have so much influence, or so many people that they bring with them. As soon as I got hooked up back with Nancy, it was like bam, like all of a sudden another explosion of people.
Like her and another explosion of people came to your group, you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. It was like, that whole,
her fans, her little
right. Well, it was like, as soon as that happened, it was like, now all of a sudden the extensions of those, of that is all. So it's like, wow. I didn't realize how much of a cocoon I was in, but there's a lot out there that I'm not really even, I'm not a part of really. So there's, it's probably good that like baby steps,
and you needed you probably needed the cocooning. It's preparing you, right?
Definitely, because it's I think that was part of the reason. I think we've talked about this before, is like, why, I don't have, more followers, or I'm not doing more or whatever, or I'm not known or anything. And I think I got scared the first couple of times, like I was exposed to that kind of, there's so many people. It's like, I was, I think, taken back. I couldn't believe it. Plus the insecurities of my own, like, why are you asking me? And then when I put something out there, people want to attack it, and I'm like, why are you attacking me? Well, I'm not saying this is truth, but now I think I'm more prepared to deal with the, just the huge array of different personalities you run across.
because you got to do it a little bit at a time with fewer people, right? So it's building whatever the skills, and
absolutely. I mean, at first I was like so defensive. I was like, I would attack right back and then be like, why are you telling me what, and it got really weird, because I was already defensive when I came in, as I never really wanted to say these kind of things to people anyways, other than leaving poetry here and there. And people would always, there's very seldom was there somebody that could understand what I was saying. So when I did start to like write and put it out in front of everybody, I thought it would be this big kumbaya kind of thing. And no, it was not. It's very vicious out there with the non-dual crowd, can be very cruel. And,
I don't blame you for retreating into your cocoon. It is pretty scary.
I was just like,
everybody can take it.
I was like, oh wait, I don't need this, and but now I think I understand a lot better, what is happening. It was enough for me to even be around other people that had similar stories. That was what was so liberating to me. I was like, oh my gosh, there are so many people that, I never knew this was a thing, non-duality. And then all of a sudden to meet all these people and like to have this sense of like a community, and then, which I thought was the most bizarre thing, a community of non-dualists.
Nothing. Well, did you hear of the group Nothing Cafe?
Yeah.
You did.
Well, yeah, I've heard Walter told me about them. He's been here a couple of times over the last 2-3 weeks. And yeah, he told me about it. And I haven't looked too deep because, here's, I'm going to say something that's a little, I don't know how it's going to come across, but it's just.
Well, just remember that we're on recording. So if you don't want this out there, right? Or you can edit it. I don't know.
What it is the reason why I don't want to venture out too much is because I am busy where I'm at. It's like I literally, when I leave, or like when I start posting stuff in other groups, other people start, taking my time, and whereas I'm dealing with people that I know already. And like when they're like, well, what are you doing going to another group? I came here to talk to you, and now you have no time for me. What am I here for? So when somebody comes to the group, I kind of like prioritize that kind of situation. If you're, spending time looking at my stuff and doing things with me, well, obviously, if you need somebody to talk to, I want to be there for you, or however that works. It just on Facebook, that's the way it seems. I mean, none of it's actual, but there seems to be plenty to do where I'm at. And so to
you wouldn't be the administrator there. You would just come join as a part of the group. But would that be appealing to you or not?
Yeah,
so much?
sure.
For you to feel a part of that, for you to hear more people that have this kind of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I'm actually a member of the group. I mean, it's like
you are, okay, yeah, because they have like Wednesdays, they have like Zoom calls, meetings, whatever you call them. They have groups where they divide us into smaller like 4 people groups, and we get to meet different people and stuff like that.
Really? That's pretty amazing.
It's pretty cool.
That does sound pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's like if you get different people every time.
You keep rotating into these smaller groups. So
there you go. That's awesome. I think that's amazing. I love this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So Neil?
Neil. Which Neil?
He's in your group, I think. Neil Sanis, I think his last name is.
Probably yes. I know he's yes.
So he's the administrator of that group.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he started that group, and I got invited, I think, by somebody put me there. Dan Litvak, I think, put me invited me to the Yeah. So
yeah,
I
he's
know
there too. Yeah. Oh, okay. So like, see, that's the funniest thing, with Facebook and stuff. Like with high school, there's like this quad. There's like there's the goofy people, there's the cool people, there's all the different types of people. But with Facebook, there's no, you have no way to group yourself. And like somebody will say, well, do you know this person? And they're talking to me from a perspective of a completely different person, like a completely different perspective. I cannot put like the small nuance of their clothes and their demeanor as they appear, as they speak. Whereas I could say this person would go with that person because they're talking the same language, or they look the same, or their mannerisms, or maybe their symbolism is the same.
Yeah.
But with with Facebook, you're working solely off of I mean, you see so many little different characters, and you read names, but you don't really recognize that. Yeah, I know Neil. So I didn't even know Neil was the
he was. And there are the people. It's not, I mean, it's quite different than the other non-dual groups that I went to, in that there isn't really any kind of non-dual language, anything specific. It's more about just socializing and having that background of that, or kind of having dipped your toes in that, or something. I mean, a lot of them have had that shift. So yeah.
And that's, I find that way easier. It's people that have, the people that don't necessarily need to be right or wrong,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not.
I think that was the point. That was the point of his group, actually. I think that the whole point was he saw how things were happening in other groups, and he was like, no, let's just socialize to just get to know each other, to
Yeah.
you know, no agenda. Yeah.
Yeah, why, you know, what is the point of, you know, breaking people down and being
Yeah,
mean
yeah.
and all of that kind of stuff? You know, and that's why, you know, it was at that point easier for me to get into my little cocoon. But now, you know, with Nothing Cafe and you know, I mean, getting back with some of these other people, it's been great, you know, because it's just nice to feel like you can write something without being, you know, interrogated.
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you
You mean
know,
your own group, or what exactly?
oh no, not it's well that the well no, just to write something like in Exploding Rainbows without worrying about somebody trying to tell me, you know, that I'm wrong or something, or any of the other groups, you know, just you know, I mean,
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
every group that I've ever been involved in, essentially, you have people that are gonna, you know, complain, or they're gonna say that this is wrong or right, or they're gonna try to get you to feel one way or another about something. And you know, it's not necessarily always positive. So
Yeah, it's not. And honestly, like even within the non-dual, there are different sects, like
yeah,
SCTs.
yeah.
So basically, you know, so even there are arguments on upon arguments about, you know, the different varieties of the non-dual perception or
Oh,
something like.
absolutely. Like if I say consciousness does not exist,
Yeah, exactly. You'll get resistance from some people there. You're muted, Howard. Huh?